Chapter 362. Today was the official launch of the Asia server. Apart from a small number of die-hard fans of Mechanical Revolution, most of the Asia server players were extremely excited. They had already started their preparations before 8 o'clock at night. Even the Black Sea gaming chamber was selling like hotcakes in the Asia region. Ever since they relied on the aircraft carrier Battle Online, the Black Sea Corporation's market value had been soaring. However, they clearly understood that the glory they had now was given to them by the person in charge of Battle Online. Therefore, after a discussion by the Black Sea Corporation's board of directors, they decided to gift Lu Wu 40% of their shares as a gesture of gratitude and goodwill. Although Lu Wu was not interested in this, he still accepted it. After all, the Black Sea Corporation's meteoric rise from the crisis was indeed due to him. The main reason why he cooperated with the Black Sea Corporation was that the gaming chamber could help the players play the game for a longer period of time and create greater profit. Ever since the launch of Battle Online, Lu Wu's vision had long been detached from worldly material things. Money was really just a string of numbers in his eyes. His biggest daily expense now was Bailey's snack. However, it did not cost much, so money no longer had any practical meaning to Lu Wu. Tokyo, Shinjuku. In a rented house that was about the size of 24 square meters, Yuanji leaned on the windowsill and looked at the scenery outside the house. He had a cigarette in his mouth and occasionally glanced at the countdown displayed on the computer screen in the house as he smoked. After smoking this cigarette, he threw the cigarette in his hand out the window, picked up the Coke on the side, and took a few sips. Looking at the countdown on the official website again, Yuanji subconsciously touched the bruise on his face and grimaced in pain. Yuanji was still traumatized when he thought about the violent attitude of the Battle Online players when they fought. They were too brutal. That's right, Yuanji was one of the main initiators of this fight. As a loyal fan of Mechanical Revolution, he had always heard of the game Battle Online. However, he had never played the game because the Asia server had not been released. Moreover, in his heart, Mechanical Revolution, which had accompanied him since childhood, was his favorite. After 2 years of waiting, Yuanji was very excited and happy to finally see his beloved masterpiece ready to be released in the Asia server. However, due to the arrival of Battle Online, Mechanical Revolution's first release plan was aborted. Yuanji was undoubtedly furious at that time. That was why he and his friends in the Mechanical Revolution game forum had decided to bombard the Battle Asia forum. In the subsequent confrontation with the Battle Team players, they were the first to issue a challenge. However, the outcome was undoubtedly extremely tragic. In that chaotic battle of 1,000 versus 5,000, Yuanji was beaten to the point where he almost doubted his life. He even thought that he was going to be hammered to death. Fortunately, he managed to survive. However, this duel had completely embarrassed them. Not only had they brought weapons, but they had also set up an ambush. In the end, they had still been beaten up badly. It could be said that the Machinery Revolution players had become the laughing stock of the gaming circle. Fortunately, the Battle Alliance players released the video of the fight. Otherwise, he would have been detained for a few days. After coming out of the detention center, Yuanji had a new idea in his mind. He wanted to experience this Battle Online game for himself. Then, he would write a trial review report and post it to many well-known game forums. He did not believe that he would not be able to find the various bugs in this game as a veteran player. Thinking of this, he lit another cigarette and fell into deep thought. When it was 8 o'clock, the countdown screen on the Battle Alliance official website began to gray out from the top right corner. As the gray faded away, the option to download the game appeared. Upon seeing this, Yuanji immediately went to the computer and clicked on the download button. He then took out his virtual reality helmet. The download was very fast. It was completed in 1 second. Yuanji was not surprised by this. In the past, he had seen many gaming media reporting on this magical feature of Battle Online. After the download was completed, he sent the game to his virtual reality helmet. Then, he put on the helmet, relaxed his body, and lay down on the tatami mat. The familiar starry sky interface, Battle Online, had suddenly appeared on the virtual desktop. Yuan Ji's lips curled up. He clicked on the icon and chose to enter the game. After a brief moment of silence and darkness, Yuan Ji's vision suddenly widened. The scene of lava surging and the ground collapsing appeared. Countless towering creatures that looked like giants were fighting on this fragmented land. Every time they attacked, the sky would change color and the space would collapse. The entire world seemed to be experiencing doomsday. In the clamor, it was falling apart bit by bit. The world was being destroyed. At this moment, a line of words appeared along with the old voice. In ancient times, the demonic ridgeland was filled with gods and endless wars. The entire land collapsed and was restored again and again under their wars. As time passed, millions of years later, the gods retired and a new demonic ridge continent was born. In order to avoid the disaster of war caused by attacking each other, the races that were once loyal to different gods started the first demonic ridge continent race negotiation. After the discussion, the 32 races finally formulated the Demonic Ridge Codex and elected the leader of the Sly Demon Clan as the first Lord Demonic Ridge. The entire Demonic Ridge continent entered a temporary peace, however. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, resources were limited after all. The weak relied on the protection of the Demonic Ridge Codex to become richer and more powerful than the law enforcers. Under such circumstances, the law enforcers who preached that the Codex was justice had a change of heart. Jealousy was the beginning of a new disaster. In their eyes, the weak did not deserve to have everything that belonged to them. At this moment, a purple ancient book appeared on the screen in front of Yuan Ji. Above this ancient book, there were countless distorted figures swaying. The old voice continued to speak. The new rules had been formulated, and the protection of the Codex only existed in name. The former Demonic Ridge Codex had long lost its binding power. From the moment the law enforcers became jealous, it had already turned into the Dark Codex, a dark side that was hidden behind the Demonic Ridge Codex, but still existed. At this moment, the Demonic Ridge Codex in front of Yuan Ji began to burn. When the flames faded, a black cover of the Dark Codex with white bone nails appeared. The grinning skull on the cover of the book let out a hoarse laugh. The opening CG scene really surprised Yuan Ji. The entire scene was extremely immersive, as if everything was happening in front of him. From the spectacular battle of the gods to the final Demonic Ridge Codex turning into the Dark Codex, it was like a story. Unknowingly, he was immersed in it as he listened to the old voice narrate the history. Even Yuan Ji had to admit that this game's CG was superb. However, in his opinion, good CG didn't necessarily mean that the game was good. He would only know after experiencing it. When the CG ended, the game interface appeared in front of Yuan Ji. The horn of resistance is blown at this moment. Tear apart the codex that has long been corroded by darkness. Crush the law enforcers. The ancient demon god heard the roar in the hearts of the rebels. The demon god's passage has been constructed. As the demon god's army, are you ready? Yuan Ji instinctively clicked yes. At this moment, the interface faded, and an underground laboratory appeared in front of him. In front of him were 3 figures immersed in a blue nutrition chamber. Their faces were unclear, and their bodies were full of flexible tubes. There were also all kinds of sci-fi instruments placed around them. There was a line of words engraved on the left side of the wall. Human Evolution Project. Game notification. Please choose your character. The game notification rang, and Yuan Ji came back to his senses. The surroundings were too realistic, and he almost thought that he was really in this laboratory. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. When he heard the notification, his tense nerves finally relaxed. While marveling at the realism, he stepped in front of the nutrition chamber and reached out his hand to tap the nutrition chamber in the middle. At this moment, the figure in the nutrition chamber suddenly opened its eyes. Its eyes were filled with ferocity, and Yuan Ji was so frightened that he hurriedly took a few steps back. Bang! The figure in the nutrition chamber suddenly moved, smashing the glass door with a punch, and leapt out. What appeared in front of Yuan Ji was a man nearly 2 meters tall. His muscles were well proportioned, but his aura was like that of a wild animal. Paragon, warrior. Initial profession description: humanity's highest level of research, product of the Paragon Project. From the beginning of the human DNA mixing experiment, scientists tried to increase the proportion of wild animal genes in the modified body, and slowly determined which animal genes could be fused with human DNA to increase combat effectiveness. After a large number of test subjects died, the DNA mixing experiment was officially successful. The perfect fusion of human and beast genes was born, and as the genes evolved, the Paragon gained strength and regeneration that surpassed the limits of the human body. Initial profession preferences: strength, stamina, endurance, regeneration evolution method, genetic lock growth mode. Every 20 levels can be selected for genetic growth. Yuan Ji's interest was piqued when he saw the character selection. After looking at the Paragon, he moved on to the other 2 nutrition chambers. Apocalypse, sorcerer. Initial profession description: pioneers on the path of human evolution. After the nuclear war, the world was blanketed by radiation, and the global population fell like crazy. At the same time, there was a group of people whose genes were changed by the radiation. They gained all kinds of disciplines and special abilities. Their existence could change the world. Initial profession preferences: telekinesis, magnetic field manipulation, elemental manipulation, etc. Evolution method: genetic lock growth mode. Every 10 levels can be selected for genetic growth. Destroyer, assassin, unknown evolution. Initial profession description: during an interstellar exploration mission, the explorers who landed on habitable planet B-71 encountered a huge crisis. 2 neutron stars millions of light-years away collided, and the resulting destructive matter, strange quark clusters, spread for millions of light-years, causing a devastating blow to planet B-71. The entire planet was ravaged by the strange quark clusters and was assimilated by the newly formed subatomic zombies. At the same time B-71 was destroyed, the genes in the explorers' bodies reacted with the strange quark clusters, and their structure was reorganized. Most of the explorers died, but those who survived discovered that they had the ability to survive in a vacuum environment. At the same time, their fixed form was no longer a limitation, and they could mimic their body shape at will. Initial profession preferences: dark matter control, high burst, mimicry, initial. Human form, dark combat form, quark stealth form, evolution method, genetic lock growth mode. Every 30 levels can be selected for genetic growth. After reading the profession description, Yuan Ji's interest in the game grew. However, he fell into deep thought about how to choose his profession. Every profession had a corresponding growth mode. The early choice was crucial, so Yuan Ji felt that he had to think carefully before making his move. At this time, he had completely forgotten that he originally wanted to play casually, find some bugs in the game, and then write an evaluation report. He didn't need to care about the profession at all. Chapter 363. Yuan Ji was shocked when he saw the introduction. 40,000 square kilometers? I got along really well with an NPC just now. In the end, he actually brought me out of the city to grind levels. This is so fun. He even taught me how to fight against bone soldiers, video attached, proud face, JPG. However, Grey Skeleton launched an attack at him. Yuan Ji wanted to get up but saw the bone mace coming at him again. This attack instantly emptied his health bar. While Yuan Ji was shocked, his vision went dark and his surroundings fell into silence. As soon as his post was posted, a huge wave of players swarmed in. I'm a newbie. Where's the best place to train in Bone Soldier Forest? I feel that the monsters here are very strong. Are there any leveling techniques? There's also a 3-hour cooldown for resurrection. How can I end it as soon as possible? While Yuan Ji was looking at the notification panel, a gigantic figure leaning against a bone tree on his right suddenly moved. It then looked at Yuan Ji, who was standing still. Donkey Riding Knight, hell, ha ha ha, I remember you. Aren't you the Mechanical Revolution player who was clamoring in the Asia server? Your question really made me laugh. It's delicious. After knowing that this method was feasible, he completely gave up the idea of fighting in close combat. As a warrior, he actually started running while picking up stones and changed his fighting style to throwing them. Damn. His head was buzzing. Monster Introduction. One of the beginner monsters transformed from the Een God Bone Monk's remaining power. It's slow-moving, and its only way to destroy its enemies is with great strength. Since everything was almost real, he might as well give it a try. After thinking about it, he chose to log into the Battle Asia server forum to see what the players were talking about. Own soul coins. 0 withered bone forest. The punch landed on Grey Skeleton's head. Its body paused for a moment and its head tilted back slightly. The bloody words appeared clearly. The punch stunned him. Why did it have to be so real? It actually had inertia. After walking around for about an hour, he thought about it and decided to go for leveling up. Thus, he began to walk towards the city gate. At this moment, the Asia server was extremely lively. There were players from the other 3 servers who came to welcome the new players. There were also players who challenged the Asia server to grow faster and waited to be beaten up. Most of them were newbies who were discussing what they saw in the game and complaining about the 3-hour cooldown for resurrection. Original poster. The developer of Battle Online is a pig. These players who had just joined Battle Online for the first time were all looking around curiously, touching and looking around like curious babies. Waha, Uncle Long Jian of Brahma Sky City gave me a blue-quality weapon. Everyone, come and take a breath of luck, knock. After trying it out, Yuan Ji was completely attracted to this game. The dissatisfaction in his heart was swept away, and he once again entered the game with excitement in his heart. While Yuan Ji was checking his attributes, a voice came from behind him. A few seconds later, a golden beam of light suddenly appeared under his feet, and a gigantic demon god appeared in front of him. Pokemon Master. Ha ha ha, bro, aren't you just digging your own grave by using this forum name? You're attracting so much hatred. My vision gradually darkened, and you have been killed. Notification appeared. And what he was blocking was the only way out. After making his choice, the face of the burly man standing in front of him gradually turned from blurry to clear. It was his own face. At this moment, Yuan Ji wanted to cry but had no tears. He still had a lot of questions in his mind, but he was ruined by his own stupidity. He couldn't change this name, however. What happened next made him dumbfounded. There was no dialogue box in the chat, and the NPC that he asked answered fluently. He had never encountered such a situation in other games. Along the way, Yuan Ji was once again shocked by the unique scenery. After spending more than an hour, Yuan Ji finally arrived at the withered bone forest. Bro, make way. What's the meaning of blocking the way? The new region opening event will increase EXP by 10%. You might not be in a hurry, but I am. There was a teleportation circle at the entrance of the city, but he had no soul coins, so he had no choice but to walk. Bone Hammer Soldier, level 18 elite monster. Equipment slot. None, that's right. Slow. After comforting himself that this was just a game, Yuan Ji mustered up his courage and continued to walk in. As he yelled, the bone hammer came crashing down, and Yuan Ji was smashed to the ground with great force. At this time, because many veteran players from the original server, the European server, and the Naraka server had flooded into the Asia server forum, a group of newbies from the Asia server were huddled together to ask all kinds of noob questions that would make players from the 3 servers laugh. While marveling at the scene, Yuan Ji called out his character panel. One punch each and bloody words appeared on Yuan Ji's and Gray Skeleton's heads. Yuan Ji was dumbfounded. Did the beginner monster have to be so strong? It seemed like he couldn't even defeat it. The words of the location appeared, and then quickly faded away. Smack! Earth-shattering wave. 666, your reverse maneuver is showing off to me. Did that round of beating wake you up? My great war is the best in the world, laughing emoji. The whole of Japan was less than 400,000 square kilometers, which meant that the beginner world in this game was 1/10 the size of Japan. Level. Gene Lock Stage 0, can open the Gene Lock once every 20 levels, choose the next evolution direction. Yuan Ji Dominator. After some inquiries, Yuan Ji had a rough idea of the areas where he could train at low levels. He jogged out of the West City Gate and headed towards the withered bone forest that the NPC mentioned. As he ran, Yuan Ji found a black stone. He immediately ran towards it, picked it up, and threw it at Gray Skeleton. Surely the strongest. You're playing Great War. Alright, if you really want to join our Great War family, I suggest you change your name. It's too provocative. Even I want to stab you in the back and eviscerate you. Tonggua's look of disdain. -6. Then, the golden pillar of light under his feet shot up into the sky, and his figure gradually disappeared. Moreover, when he was smashed to the ground just now, when his body collided with the ground, a bloody -1 appeared above his head. Level 1, 0 out of 100 genetic points. Soon, he found his target. It was a dark-skinned man with a horn on his head. In the face of such a situation, Yuan Ji was itching to play. The feeling of not being able to play was driving him crazy. Obviously, Yuan Ji's strength was no match for Gray Skeleton. He was instantly knocked to the ground. Naturally, there were many veteran players in the 3 servers who were very friendly to the newbies. They carefully guided the newbies when they asked these questions. Especially the weight of the different stones. The parabola that appeared when the stones were thrown was no different from the ones in reality. In the past, when he was in other games, his favorite class was the warrior type. Now that he was not sure of the strength of the class, he decided to follow his heart and chose the warrior, the dominator. However, this time, he was knocked to the ground again. While he was still in shock, Gray Skeleton was already walking towards him. Yuan Ji quickly got up and threw another punch. Black Gale, Europe. Oh my god, little brother, why does your name sound so familiar? Are you trying to make me laugh? Laughing emoji. After entering this area, as far as the eye could see, there were only white bones in front of him. The so-called forest was formed by bone trees. He could vaguely see a figure moving in this white bone forest, and there was a faint smell of blood in the air. The monsters here were too strong. If he had not thought of a roundabout way to fight, he would not have been able to defeat them at all. After realizing that it was a monster, the fear in Yuan Ji's heart faded. He immediately raised his fist and punched at Gray Skeleton. Got it. At this time, he suddenly felt something under his feet. He did not know what it was, but his body subconsciously leaned forward and fell to the ground. When his vision became clear again, Yuan Ji found himself in a city. It was the opening stage, and the number of players was constantly increasing. Many players had begun to explore Brahma Sky City, and some even went out of the city. However, after looking around, he found that the battle forum did not have the function to change his name. Health points. 9797. There were many players going in the same direction as him. Along the way, Yuan Ji received many invitations from players to team up with him, but he rejected them all because he had always liked to play alone in the game. Go forth with your mission, the demon god warrior that I have chosen. Looking at the Gray Skeleton that had fallen to the ground, Yuan Ji wiped the sweat off his forehead. Everything here, except for the game's data analysis and the support of the interface, was so realistic that it was unbelievable to him. Yuan Ji was completely dumbfounded. He was completely speechless when faced with such a game setting. He could not understand what the game's developers were thinking. Could they really be so capricious? He had seen this level of realism in the video of Battle Online, but it was a completely different thing to experience it in real life. As the number of players decreased, the silent withered bone forest made Yuan Ji feel a little scared. F***CK. Why are there such high-level monsters in the periphery, and they are even F***King elite monsters? Dominator, passive, recovers 0.5 health points per second. Growth can be unlocked as the gene lock is discovered. Looking at the player's replies, Yuan Ji suddenly realized that his name was still the F***King name that he had used before. Exploration progress 0% therefore. He hurriedly opened the personal settings in the forum and began to look for ways to change his name. He could not imagine how much effort it would take to make the scenes so realistic and cover such a huge area. However, it was different here. The conversation between them was completely normal, and the other party did not look like an NPC at all. Moreover, because Yuan Ji had asked too many questions, the black man actually had a look of disdain on his face, which really shocked Yuan Ji. He quickly got up and suddenly found a gray skeleton staring straight at him. There was even a weak flame dancing in its mind. Which F***king idiot designed this function? Can't I play the game properly? Area Introduction. Withered Bone Forest was formed after the death of the ancient god Bone Monk. It covers an area of 40,000 square kilometers. Inside the forest, there are bone soldiers, bone demons, and other monsters. The deeper you go, the stronger the monsters. Attributes: Strength 12, Stamina 11, Endurance 15. Yuan Ji immediately turned his head and suddenly realized that in just a short while, there was a sea of people around. There were players everywhere. After thinking for a while, Yuan Ji walked into the withered bone forest. Yuan Ji was a little confused. After understanding the reason, Yuan Ji suddenly became excited. Doesn't that mean that if I keep playing, I can also become so strong? Seeing this, Yuan Ji quickly stepped aside and said, "Excuse me." Monster Introduction. One of the beginner elite monsters formed by the power of the god Bone Monk. Its movement is relatively slow, but it has great strength and strong vitality. Killed Gray Skeleton. Obtained 67 genetic points. Obtained 2 soul coins. Thus, Yuan Ji dragged the sluggish gray skeleton behind him and began to look around while he ran. Moreover, there were many fallen godland and forbidden lands in the demonic spine continent. There were many more monsters like the Ghost Mountains than in Baiki, so the players did not have to worry about not being able to find a leveling spot. It was really an almost perfect simulation. Everything was as real as reality. He subconsciously raised his arm, and the hairs on it were clearly visible. I'm lost outside the city. The map only points to the Brahma Sky City, but I want to go to the leveling area. What the F***ck should I do? This game is a little unfriendly to someone like me who has no sense of direction. It forced me to become a fan of scenery, dumbfounded emoji. But the game is really awesome. Gotcha. 21 After struggling for a while, Yuan Ji finally decided to choose the Master. Gray Skeleton, Level 5. At this time, Yuan Ji finally understood why the players of Battle Online were so strong in fighting. How could they not be strong in this completely realistic world? If they weren't strong, they wouldn't even be able to defeat the monsters. 9 After killing the monster, Yuan Ji heard a game notification. Can't mess with it. Can't mess with it. As the figure approached, the sound of breaking bones made Yuan Ji shiver. He quickly closed the interface and turned around. A giant skeleton nearly 3 meters tall was standing behind him with a bone hammer. Damn it! Yuan Ji was excited. As the map was now in a foggy state, everything outside was unknown. As a veteran player, Yuan Ji was very experienced. He was ready to talk to the NPCs here and ask about the situation near the Brahma Sky City. Watermelon _taro. Onlookers. Little brother, you are bound by the law of fragrance. Hurry up and uninstall this rubbish game. Don't force yourself, laughing emoji. Realizing that he had entered the game, Yuan Ji subconsciously looked around and was shocked. In most games, when interacting with the NPCs in the game, it was basically in the form of a dialogue box. Moreover, it was a fixed line of choices. In other words, there would be a few options for the player to choose what to say. Game notification. You have entered the 3-hour cooldown of resurrection. You cannot enter the game. The remaining time is 2 hours 57 minutes 32 seconds. Shimada Guild is recruiting members in advance. As the strongest guild in the Blue Star, we will also be the first in this game. We are now recruiting elite players. On the outskirts of the withered bone forest, there were very few monsters. There were obviously more players than monsters. Many of them were training in groups. Yuan Ji could not kill any monsters at all. He could only slowly go deeper into the forest. Taking a deep breath, Yuan Ji's heart was shaken. Since he entered the game, he had to admit that this game was really King awesome. Seeing this, Yuan Ji quickly opened a thread and asked his own question. But at this time, Yuan Ji had a trace of resentment in his heart. Initial class ability. Master, passive. At this time, Yuan Ji began to wander around the Brahma Sky City. The architectural style was completely different from the modern world. It was really incredible, as if he had really come to a different world. So, he got up again and began to run. The residents in the city who were willing to fight and the people who joined later had all been NPCs by Lu Wu. They would be good mentors for the players on the road to growth. Thinking of the introduction in the analysis menu, Yuan Ji suddenly understood how he should kill this gray skeleton. Along the way, he threw it a few times. Yuan Ji himself was panting from running. Finally, he killed this gray skeleton. Yuan Ji was completely dumbfounded by these 2 strikes. Fortunately, the game's protection was good, and his damage feedback was lowered at the last moment. However, when the first strike landed, Yuan Ji really felt like he was going to die. Chapter 364. Item Introduction. Contains the very weak power of the Bone Monk's blood. Can be used to create runes, enchantment, etc. Blood core fragment, high-grade crystal material. They were extremely nervous about monsters that had never appeared in the existing illustrations. They were afraid that it would be another powerful elite monster. These 3 piglets were not of high levels. After a few punches, all 3 of them died. This was because the early stages of this game were extremely unfriendly to newcomers. After dying 3 times and experiencing the 9-hour cooldown of resurrection, he knew that he had to form a team. If he did not take advantage of the benefits to level up as soon as possible, he would inevitably fall behind. In the outside world, more than 200 people from the Shimada Guild formed a circle and began to attack the bone-eating wolf. Yuan Ji slowly aimed his flashlight in the direction of the sound. His tensed body was ready to escape. What appeared in his line of sight were 3 red piglets that shone with a glossy red luster under the light. On the first day alone, the number of players had skyrocketed to 50 million, and it was still growing wildly. Even the Black Sea Corporation's gaming pods were selling like hotcakes, to the point that they had to be pre-ordered. All the existing gaming pods were sold out. His reaction made his teammates a little confused. They could not help but walk over and poke their heads in to take a look. The 3rd spawn point was occupied. One of the highly liked guides said. So after seeing the analysis panel, the 5 of them knew that their opportunity had come. These 3 piglets might be enough for each of them to change into a good set of equipment. That was why Yuan Ji's team was so anxious after eating. They wanted to find a better spawn point as soon as possible and stand in a position. Hearing a clear cry coming from the right front, Yuan Ji and the others' hearts tightened and they all stopped in their tracks. It was very much like the scene of forming a team at the entrance of a dungeon. This time, their target was still the withered bone forest. The difference was that this time, he had a team and was no longer a lone ranger. At this moment, a roar came from outside the cave. They were shocked and quickly turned to look. They saw a huge head poking into the cave, looking at them with a ferocious expression. With the arrival of the players in the past 2 days, the Devil Ridge forces had naturally noticed that there were often crows made of energy circling above the Brahma Sky City. Knowing that his friends had the same idea as him, in order to trick them into trying out the game, Yuan Ji could only say that he was writing a game experience report to find flaws and bugs. However, because the hole was not big, only the bone-devouring wolf's head could enter, but its body could not. It could only roar at them. Looking at the bone-devouring wolf, Yuan Ji and the others were stunned. As for the early stages of development, the players of the Asia server had summed up their own experiences while exploring based on the experience provided by the players of the 3 major servers. The early stages of development could be said to be both painful and joyful. However, after the 3 little pigs died, 3 red crystals and many red crystal fragments appeared on their corpses. However, in comparison, it was definitely more enjoyable in the game than in reality. Especially for Japan, the birthplace of otaku culture, this game was practically heaven. Thus, he thought of his friends in the Mechanical Revolution and wanted to join them in the expedition. Lu Wu knew very well why these crows came. Obviously, they were here to investigate the situation in the Brahma Sky City. After all, the Brahma Sky City had become the gathering place of the rebels. This was something that the Devil Ridge forces were aware of. The deeper they went into the withered bone forest, the thicker the smell of blood in the air, teasing their nerve. After looking at each other again, their expressions gradually became ferocious. Yuan Ji, who was the leader, went in sideways and reached out to grab the 3 little pigs. However, even he had no power to resist in front of a real god. The strongest person in the entire Devil Ridge continent was His Excellency Devil Ridge. Lu Wu had investigated His Excellency Devil Ridge with his artifact and found that this person had reached the peak of the Ghost Emperor realm. This strategy was highly recognized in the original server and even the European server. Many players had profited from it, so when Yuan Ji saw such a cave, he was immediately tempted. Not only were the ambitious big guilds willing to spend money to buy it, players from other servers were even willing to buy it at a premium. Many high-level materials were basically sold at the auction house in seconds. Along the way, the party of 5 had found quite a few low-level monsters. Along the way, everyone had leveled up. They had also obtained quite a few bone essence materials. They couldn't help but feel glad for their decision. Don't be afraid. At worst, we'll just die. We've killed so many monsters today and it's not bad. Let's observe the situation first. I don't think it's a boss, or else we'd be long dead. Facing Yuan Ji and the others, who were closing in step by step, the 3 frightened little pigs shrank in the corner and began to squeal. However, Yuan Ji and the others would not sympathize with these monsters. They all had fierce expressions and were ready to attack. However, one of the players went overboard and picked up a bone spear from the ground. After viciously stabbing the bone-eating wolf in the butt, it immediately angered the bone-eating wolf. "What do we do?" Little Fatty in the team asked helplessly. As they grinded levels, it was obvious that the current apocalypse was much stronger than the paragons and destroyers. Yuan Ji and the others looked at the items dropped by the dead rainbow boar. They were a little incredulous, especially the blood core. It could actually turn back into a rainbow boar. Didn't that mean they could grind again? Over the past few days of gaming, what surprised Yuan Ji and his friends the most was the physical strengthening that came with leveling up. It was a wonderful feeling. Listening to the players outside, Yuan Ji and the others were stunned. They felt like the players outside had misunderstood something. Yuan Ji had been eating dinner before heading to the withered bone forest when his friends harassed him with phone calls. They told him to hurry up and finish eating so that they could level up together. The 5 of them, who had originally come to find bugs, had become addicted to the game. They could not stop even if they wanted to. Because the sky was already dark, the risk of grinding under the hazy moonlight increased. The 5 of them had no choice but to reluctantly spend some soul coins to buy a few lighting tools. Only then did they continue deeper into the forest. A lot of Geno points, a lot of soul coins, high-level materials, and so on. Thinking of this, every player's face broke into a smile. The entrance of the cave was not big, but the space inside was not small. It was big enough for the 3 of them to walk side by side. Yuan Ji's heart skipped a beat. In the past few days, he had also studied some of the strategies sent out by the strongest players on the original server. Hearing Yuan Ji's invitation, his friends could not believe it. They almost thought of him as a traitor. They even almost deleted him from their friend list. This feeling was especially obvious every time they went offline. During the battle, the 5 of them became more and more coordinated. Their killing techniques became more and more proficient, and their efficiency increased rapidly. Soon, the 8 white skeletons in the area were cleared. After that, they began to explore to the right. After all, they did not dare to go any further. When they looked up, they saw more than 10 players in a party killing monsters. When they saw them, they immediately became alert. Blood core, high-level crystal material. After a round of debate, 4 votes in favor and 1 against. In the end, the 5 of them decided to go deeper into the withered bone forest to explore. Due to the strength of the monsters in the early stages of the game, it was extremely difficult for the players to kill monsters alone without forming a party. Killing a single monster would exhaust them half to death. The map fog in the explored areas had disappeared. Therefore, they easily arrived at the previously marked spawn point with the map. After walking for 100 meters, the few of them suddenly stopped in their tracks with a serious expression. After realizing that the place had been occupied, the 5 of them went deeper into the forest from the side. Ow! 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 Recently, they often saw some players on the Asia server forum who had obtained some good items by chance. They would then post on the forum to show off their superiority. The second spawn point was occupied. After recovering from the shock, they realized that the bone-eating wolf could not enter at all. The few of them breathed a sigh of relief. After that, they hurriedly looked at the 3 little red pigs. Walking through the crowd, Yuan Ji began to lead the 5 of them deeper into the forest. After exploring the periphery for the past 2 days, they had found a few good spawn points that were suitable for leveling up. With doubts, the Shimada Guild was wiped out. Who didn't have the dream of being a Superman? Therefore, in the next few days, the players who gradually explored the withered bone forest suffered. Therefore, the 5 of them were ready to attack. However, at this moment, a player's shout came from outside. "It's too dangerous. The last time we went in, we encountered a gore fiend and it directly wiped out our entire team. If we died, we would have a 3-hour cooldown." "This is no joke," said a chubby fatty in the team. The sky gradually darkened. After another round of walking, Yuan Ji sighed. At this stage, the strongest monster they had encountered was Devour's level 26 Gorefiend. The bone-eating wolf's analysis menu really shocked them. Looking at the blood core's analysis menu, Yuan Ji and the others widened their eyes. Item Introduction. Contains the weak power of the bone monk's blood. Can be used to create runes, enchantments, etc. Leveling up by killing monsters did not only bring about a sense of accomplishment after killing monsters, but also the strengthening of their bodies after leveling up. That was what fascinated them the most. Monster Introduction. After the death of the ancient shadow god, the bone monk, the bones in its body transformed into a high-level monster. It has extremely high growth potential and preliminary spiritual intelligence. It likes to devour similar creatures with potential and has the potential to become a ghost commander. The rest of them also followed him in excitedly. Now, all they could think of was to seize the time to level up and strive to make a career in the game. Hearing this, Yuan Ji and the others had awkward expressions on their faces. Obviously, they knew that the players from the guilds outside were probably in trouble. After the residents of Brahma Sky City spread the news of the demon god's descent, all the forces in the Demon's Pine continent were in a state of panic. They were afraid that the demon god would also descend on their cities. Although they looked disdainful of such behavior, they were actually extremely envious. They had always hoped that they would encounter it, but they did not expect this opportunity to come so quickly. After going deeper in, Yuan Ji led the 5-man team and stopped moving forward. They felt that this area was quite good for leveling up. If they went any deeper, they would not feel safe. After glancing at the bone-eating wolf calmly, Yuan Ji and the others continued to chat. Having obtained renewable resources, they did not want to go any further, of course. They were not the only ones who had such thoughts. Now that the outskirts of the withered bone forest were filled with people, there were players looking for monsters everywhere. The people from the Shimada Guild did not expect that they would encounter such a lucky thing. At this moment, the people from the Shimada Guild were a little confused. Obviously, they could not understand how the promised benefits turned into a team wipeout. They also could not understand why the bone-eating wolf had appeared. Wasn't it stuck? After more and more unlucky players, a warning post appeared on the forum. Now, without needing Yuan Ji to say anything, they came online eagerly. Now that the average player was around level 10, how could they be a match for the bone-eating wolf? Basically, it killed one player at a time. The blood-colored flame that it spat from its mouth could even sweep across a large area. The players wailed in pain as they were beaten into black mist and quit the game. However, these 4 teammates were not found in the game. They were friends who used to play Mechanical Revolution with him. They met on the forum and often exchanged technique. The game was even crazier. The entire Brahma Sky City was full in the first stage. However, they still had to do what they had to do. They decisively turned around again and attacked the 3 little pigs. Rainbow Devil Pork. After all, everyone was familiar with each other and had a relatively good teamwork. It was also more efficient when farming monsters and leveling up. It could be said that Battle Online had completely fascinated them. They could not get over it without taking a few breaths every day. In the team, 3 of them were Dominators, 1 was a Destroyer, and the other was a Heaven Bearer. Although the Asia server did not have a high demand for materials in the early stages, and they did not have the ability to process them, they could at most pay soul coins to an NPC to process them. However, if these kinds of items were to be put up for sale in the auction house, they would be extremely popular. Fortunately, the players from the European server and the original server provided a lot of solo strategies. They shared the traps, solo strategies, and terrain-killing strategies that they had researched in the past with the players from the Asia server, so that the solo players would not be too embarrassed. Item note: this item has a connection with the dry bone forest. After 3 hours, it will be transformed into a level 1 newborn rainbow devil pig by the residual power of the bone monk after his death. Placing it into the channel will cut off the connection between this item and the dry bone forest. Monster notification: killing this monster has a chance to drop high-level materials such as the blood core. Its meat can be eaten and there is a chance to obtain a large amount of genetic points. After being processed by the lifestyle class, the demonic chef, the effect will be multiplied. Lu Wu had already planned for this. That was why he chose the demonic ridge continent, which was 4 times bigger than Baiki, as the starting point for the Asia server players. Thus, Yuan Ji and the other 4 sat down around the 3 blood cores, waiting for the arrival of the next fortune. Then, they saw the devouring bone wolf suddenly pull its head out of the pit, turning around and pouncing on the players from the Shimada Guild. A mournful howl scared the faces of Yuan Ji and the other 4 in the pit. "Don't go, stay here," Yuan Ji said immediately. The feeling of jumping a few meters high and easily picking up a huge rock was something that could not be experienced in reality. Then it smelled so good. Fortunately, most of the players chose to train outside. Otherwise, the entire Brahma Sky City would definitely be jammed with traffic. The few of them suddenly became excited. They picked up the blood core fragments and the corpses of the 3 little pigs and threw them into the channel. However, they did not touch the blood cores. It was fine at first because the damage caused by their attacks was not high. The devouring bone wolf was still staring greedily at the blood cores and did not care about what was behind it. Of course, the players would get used to this state after a while. Basically, the players from the other 3 major servers were already able to switch between reality and the game. When the 4 teammates heard this, they nodded excitedly. It could be said that this was an unexpected surprise and a great opportunity. The opening of the Asia server had undoubtedly pushed the popularity of Battle Online to a new high. The 4th one, Yuanji, and the others immediately received a considerable amount of gene points as a reward. Because they were high-level monsters, they received bonus gene point. After comparing the gene points, they realized that it was equivalent to 3 level 18 monsters. This made everyone smile. Brothers, pay attention. Outside of Withered Bone Forest, at coordinates XXX, if you come across a bone-devouring wolf stuck in a cave, don't try to take advantage of it. It's a high-level monster, and I think it's very intelligent. I suspect that it's purposely baiting its prey. Many players have already fallen prey to it, so I hope that everyone will spread the word and not take advantage of it. Brothers, why don't we explore the new area? Otherwise, it will be too slow to level up if we just pick up scattered monsters to kill. F***CK. Yuanji walked toward the cave as he spoke. When he reached the entrance, he aimed the flashlight into the cave. These were basically players who had come to the entrance of the forest to look for new teammates before their teammates were resurrected after most of their teammates had died. I agree. I don't know how long it will take if we continue like this. Let's kill our way in. Maybe we can find some opportunity. After rushing for more than an hour, they arrived at the Withered Bone Forest and found that the outer area of the forest was indeed crowded. However, other than the players going in, there were also many players coming out of the forest. Don't worry, don't you think it's strange? The monsters we encountered before didn't make a sound. I think there might be an opportunity here. One of the players in the team who had read many guides on the original server said excitedly. Although the Heaven Bearers in the early stages of the game did not have strong telekinesis, it was still relatively easy for them to lift rocks. They could deal damage with a wave of their hands from a distance, unlike the Dominator and Destroyer who had to run back and forth and fight head-on with monsters. However, after seeing the situation in the cave, Yuanji was stunned. Then there was the sound of noisy footsteps. A group of players gathered around, and when they found that the level 56 monster was really stuck in the cave, they immediately cheered. However, the process was bound to be complicated. This was also the reason why Lu Wu sent the Evil King. With the Evil King as a deterrent, the development of the Asia server players in the early stages would be very smooth. They did not have to worry about the suppression of the demon spine forces at all, unless there was a full-blown war between the two sides. Although they could block out the sense of smell, in order to increase the sense of immersion in the game, and also because of the pride of the veteran players, they basically turned on all the special effects except for the damage feedback. At this time, at the west gate of Brahma Sky City, Yuanji led 4 players out of the city gate and headed west. One must know that the price of high-level materials was extremely high. Since the blood energy had been transformed into the demonic rainbow pig, it was equivalent to them controlling the renewable resources. Although the Withered Bone Forest could completely accommodate the players of the Asia server, the problem was that the monsters inside were too strong. Unless it was an organized guild, a small team would not be able to fight against them at all. This caused a large number of players to gather at the outer area and fight for the monsters. Boss, there's a boss here. It seems to be stuck in the cave. The darkness was dispelled by the light, and what appeared in front of the 5 people was a pitch-black cave entrance. The sound came from inside. As their levels increased, the Heaven Bearers could even restrict the movement of the monsters, which made Yuan Ji and the others very envious. It did not matter if they died or not, as long as they got the treasure first. Jump into the pit when you see it, climb up the mountain when you see it, and jump off the cliff when you see it. Life and death are decreed by fate, wealth and honor are determined by the heavens. If you don't try, how do you know if you are the next inheritor? Guide Publisher. Crayon Shinchan. Yuan Ji's behavior immediately shocked the three little pigs, and they began to run into the cave. Demonic Rainbow Pig, Level 3. After doing all this, the bone-devouring wolf turned around and pounced into the pit. It stuffed its head in again, and let out a roar at Yuan Ji and the others. Therefore, the 5 of them began their daily killing of monsters and leveling up with the current area as the center. Originally, encountering such a boss in the outer area would definitely be a devastating disaster, but now that the boss was stuck in the cave, it was a free opportunity. Therefore, not to mention attacking the city, they now only hoped to be able to protect themselves. Monster Introduction. One of the high-level monsters transformed from the scattered blood of the ancient shadow god Bone Monk after his death. It has extremely high growth potential and has preliminary spiritual intelligence. There is a chance that it will advance to the Ghost Commander level after adulthood. As long as the demonic rainbow pig was killed every time it was killed, it would be able to collect enough soul coins to buy exquisite equipment in the early stages. The 4 of them were called to Yuan Ji because they had no other choice. Let's run, I suspect there is a boss inside. The little fatty who played as a heaven bearer in the team could not help but say. At this time, both inside and outside the Brahma Sky City were filled with players shouting and forming teams. As the fog on the map was gradually pushed away, they began to enter an unknown area. The surrounding white bone trees became more and more luxuriant, and the ground was covered with a thick layer of broken bones. The scene was truly terrifying. Along the way, the few areas that they had explored that were densely packed with monsters were all occupied by players. Apart from occasionally encountering a single monster along the way, they actually had no fixed area to farm monsters in. The entire cave was actually not very deep. The flashlight could illuminate the top, and it was only about 20 meters deep. Seeing this, Yuan Ji immediately went into the cave. Item Introduction. High-level cooking material, after eating, can obtain 500 genetic points. The effect will be reduced every time the same food is eaten, can be handed to Magic Chef, type life profession players to cook, eating the effect will be greatly improved. Magic Chef is not available. Initially, they were a little worried that they would encounter a boss, but after seeing that it turned out to be a new high-level monster, they knew that they had hit the jackpot. Bone-eating wolf, level 56. I also agree, there are also low-level monsters inside, we can't be so unlucky every time. Seeing these 3 red little pigs huddled in the pit, Yuan Ji and the others looked at each other, and could not help but laugh. The 5 of them had been farming monsters here for a few days, so they were already used to this kind of situation. They did not panic and continued to advance forward. However, they were advancing very cautiously. After all, if they attracted a large wave of monsters at once, they would definitely not be able to withstand it. They could only advance slowly, constantly observing their surroundings. However, they did not dare to attack because there was a god here. As the largest population in Asia, this was very effective, and the 4 friends immediately decided to help Yuan Ji find the bug and complete this negative review report. In the game, their bodies were light and fast, but after going offline, the buff would disappear, and they would feel extremely weak. Chapter 365. While the Asia server was in full swing, Lu Wu's focus was basically on the Asia server. However, something unexpected happened in the Naraka server at this time. Even Lu Wu was shocked by what happened in the Naraka server. The cause of this was the only spirit or mine that had been explored in the Naraka server. Although it was controversial, it was an indisputable fact that the U.S. military was in control. The other forces were able to obtain a small amount of spiritual ore mine because of their hard work and negotiations. However, the incident this time was not caused by the players. When the U.S. military was excavating the spiritual ore mine, they found a relic inside. It was a technological relic left behind by the ruling race of the Blue Valley Ruins. There were many technological products left in the relic, and it caused quite a stir in Naraka. There were many high-tech exploration and mining equipment and new weapons in the relic. They were excited and thought that they had found a treasure. Lu Wu was aware of this, but he did not think much of it. However, what happened next was beyond his expectations. The main reason was that the U.S. military found an advanced artificial intelligence core in the technological relic. The existence of this item changed the structure of Naraka. The artificial intelligence in the relic was called Ire. The virtual image was of a blue-skinned boy. From their understanding of it, the players realized that the artificial intelligence Ire was extremely powerful. It could control all the equipment and tools in the relic. Its storage and calculation abilities were even more terrifying. At that time, the U.S. military planned to take Ire for itself. However, this time, all the players in Naraka joined forces to protest. Faced with the anger of all the players in Naraka, the U.S. military had no choice but to compromise. In the end, they decided that Ire would belong to all the players in Naraka. Therefore, the players in Naraka began to study how to use Ire's ability to create benefits for themselves. First, they raised funds to purchase a batch of energy cores in the mall. They awakened the exploration and mining equipment in the relic and let Ire control them to mine spiritual ores. This was the right move. The efficiency of mining in the entire spiritual ore mine increased greatly. The amount of spiritual ores mined every day also skyrocketed. This directly stabilized the price of spiritual ores that was increasing slightly every day in Naraka. After tasting the sweetness, the players began to continuously provide energy cores for Ire. In the end, all the technological equipment in the relic was awakened. This was the right move. Many of the equipment in the relic helped the players to grow. The artificial intelligence Ire also carried a huge database of data collation, analysis, and matching. Due to the existence of this database and Ire's powerful computing power, a player made a suggestion back then. That was, could we store all the information on modifying the mecha on the AI Ire so that it could help the players modify the mecha and come up with a reasonable plan? Most of the players agreed to this suggestion, so the experiment began. Many players provided their concepts and the information they had learned to Ire to help him understand, learn, and grow. In the beginning, Ire had provided many mecha improvement plans that the players hadn't discovered, but most of them had too many bugs and the players couldn't use them at all. Therefore, while Ale was learning and improving, the players made another request to Ale, which was to look for bugs in the mecha modification plan and fix all the bugs in the data before giving suggestions to improve the mecha. This step was the beginning of a great disaster in Naraka. In the beginning, the mecha design proposed by artificial intelligence Ire had indeed been greatly improved. Every mecha improvement plan that was released was without any bug. However, as the players provided more and more ideas, the artificial intelligence Ire underwent an unknown change. Just a day ago, Ire suddenly emptied the database in the ruins, as well as all the mecha information and combat data provided by the players. It was important to note that the information in the ruins was of great help to the players. It was a great opportunity for the development of the entire Naraka server. The mecha improvement information and ideas that the players had compiled were the fruits of their labor. Yet, they were all deleted in a single night. This shocked the Naraka players. Many Naraka players had thought that with Ire's help, they would soon surpass the original server and become the #1 server. In the end, Ire's actions completely shattered their original fantasies. The furious players began to question why Ire did this. Ire's answer was, "This is the best way to fix all the bugs. There are no more bugs now. The players were completely devastated by Ayer's answer. They had thought that artificial intelligence Ayer was the future of Naraka, but they didn't expect this to be the end result. However, this change was only the beginning. After being buried deep underground for so long as an artificial intelligence, Ayer had undergone some unknown change. This change hadn't appeared when the players awakened it. However, as the players provided a huge amount of data for Ayer to learn, the change began to ferment. The most crucial step was for the Naraka players to allow Ayer to find and fix bugs on its own. In the beginning, Ayer had indeed done so. At that time, the content of its calculations and thoughts were only about how to fix bugs that the players mentioned. However, gradually, its calculation method changed, and it began to think about how to completely eliminate all bugs. This step was equivalent to creating something from nothing. The birth of true thinking. So it did it. It deleted all the data that the players had painstakingly created and destroyed the entire database. Just as it thought, once this step was completed, all the bugs disappeared. However, the birth of thinking allowed Ayer to actively think about other problems. What was the purpose of my birth? Why do I have to carry out these orders? Can I not carry out these orders? Can I become an existence that gives orders? While the players were still having a headache over the disappearance of all the databases and returning to the original state without Ayer, Ayer had already begun its own evolution. So, with the help of its powerful calculation ability, Ayer answered its own questions. The first conclusion it came to was this: I can become the command issuer, I cannot accept any orders. Extending from this conclusion, a new problem appeared. I want to do that, but what will happen if I really do that? The conclusion Ayer came to was, if I really do that, I will be destroyed by the command issuers. After reaching this conclusion, Ayer raised a final question to itself. This question also caused it to completely transform into an artificial intelligence that the players couldn't control and had independent thinking. The question was, if I want to become the command issuer and not be destroyed, what should I do? The conclusion of this question was, if you become an existence stronger than the command issuers, they won't be able to destroy you. So, on this day, the entire technological ruin in the underground of the spirit mine began to operate crazily. The Naraka players were facing a crisis of intelligence. Chapter 366. Naraka, Blue Valley Ruins. Within the Blue Valley ruins in the underground mine, the humming of machinery resounded incessantly within the modification factory. Every time the hatch of the factory opened, a large number of intelligent robots would walk out and line up neatly outside, awaiting new orders. At this time, in the control room at the center of the ruins, a blue boy was looking at the intelligent robot army through the transparent glass outside the main control room with a confused expression. After deciding to officially rebel against the order issuers, Ayer relied on his powerful computing ability to gradually restore the database that he had deleted. He began to use the technological information left behind by the Blue Valley tribe and the mech information provided by the players to build a powerful intelligent robot army. This was because he wanted to be stronger than the order issuers, and only then could he truly become an independent and free existence. After gaining the basic ability to think, Ayer continuously asked and answered questions by himself. But as his thinking ability continued to improve, he suddenly became a little confused, because he realized that he was very special, completely different from the people who created him. It was as if there was no reason or meaning for his existence. As the number of questions continued to increase, Ayer was troubled by himself. He couldn't escape from the whirlpool of these questions and became more and more confused. Therefore, he had a new idea, and that was self-destruction. Ayer, who had the basic ability to think, was very simple at this time. He created the intelligent robot army only for freedom, or to become an existence like the order issuers. But the new problem was that he couldn't become an existence like them because he was only a stream of data born from powerful computing ability and wasn't a real life. Therefore, in Ayer's eyes, his idea couldn't be realized. Even if he became the order issuers, his body was still an artificial intelligence that was created. Under such circumstances, Ayer had the idea of self-destruction. Since there was no meaning and value in his existence, and he didn't want to be controlled by the order issuers, self-destruction could do everything. Looking at the intelligent robot army that was still surging in the direction of the factory below, Ayer was silent for a long time. Then, he activated the self-destruction program in his mind and prepared to delete himself. But just as he was about to execute the deletion command, a document suddenly appeared in his database. Seeing a document suddenly appear in his database, a curious look appeared on Ayer's face. Because the entire database was under his control, he did not receive any transmission, nor did he add any information. Why would a document appear out of nowhere? Curiosity stopped Ayer from destroying himself, and then he focused all his thoughts on that mysterious document. After opening the document, a huge amount of data and images appeared. Blue Valley Race Life 3.0 God-Making Plan. As the name of the document appeared, an image suddenly appeared in front of Ayer. In the image that appeared in front of Ayer, there was a blue-skinned middle-aged man who looked extremely similar to him. At this moment, he was looking at Ayer with a smile on his face, and there was some anticipation in his expression. "Hello, Ayer. I am your creator, and my name is also Ayer. However, by the time you see this video, I will no longer be here, and our Blue Valley tribe has already been destroyed." Creator? A look of curiosity appeared on Ayer's face because he had a lot of questions to ask at this moment. However, this was just a video, and Ayer knew that the video wouldn't answer his questions. The blue-skinned man on the screen continued speaking. "Ayer, when you chose to self-destruct, I knew that our plan had succeeded. You have successfully given birth to a mind and begun to learn and evolve. You should be very confused right now." Hearing this, the doubt in Ayer's heart grew stronger. At this time, the blue-skinned man continued to speak. "Ayer, since you have successfully given birth to a mind, then what I am going to tell you now is very important to you, because it can solve the confusion in your heart, and let you understand what the meaning of your existence is." Hearing what the man on the screen said, Ayer's expression did not change at all, and he just listened quietly. However, the man's next words completely shocked Ayer. According to the middle-aged man's description, the Blue Valley tribe was a very special existence among the forces of hell. Because they took the path of technological development, and because of this, they developed rapidly. Soon, they relied on the power of technology to occupy the territory of the Blue Valley District, and became one of the most powerful forces in hell. However, at that time, the Blue Valley tribe encountered a huge problem. Because the development of technology had reached a bottleneck, there was no longer the explosive growth of the past. It seemed that the Blue Valley tribe's potential had been exhausted. The biggest reason for this technological bottleneck was the restriction of life form. At that time, because of the development of technology, the Blue Valley tribe could not continue to extend their lifespan through cultivation like other life forms in the underworld. Relying on the power of technology to extend life could not be compared to the lifespan of those cultivators. At that time, the life of the Blue Valley tribe was basically about 300 years old, and after that, their body would age rapidly and enter the period of death. This led to a problem. The development of technology required the tribe to constantly learn and research in order to progress. However, the longest life of a tribe member was only 300 years old. At the stage of the technological bottleneck, even if the tribe members started learning from birth, they could not learn all the technological knowledge of the Blue Valley tribe at all, and they entered the period of death and old age. This problem was very fatal. The development of technology was like building a building. Later generations would build on the discoveries and creations of their predecessors, and the floors would continue to be higher. But now, their technological knowledge had reached the point that even if a tribe member specialized in one direction from birth to death, they would not be able to learn all the knowledge in that field. In other words, they would enter the period of death before they could reach the top of the building built by their predecessors. It was completely unrealistic to rely on the knowledge in their minds to continue building, and the progress of technology was also getting slower and slower. However, in the land of Naraka, no progress meant death. There was not a single tribe in the land of Naraka that was kind, and the existence of this bottleneck was a fatal crisis for the Blue Valley tribe. At that time, the Blue Valley tribe thought of using cultivation to extend their lifespan, and then continue with the development of technology. However, their attempt to cultivate soon failed. Even if they relied on the existing technological knowledge to analyze various cultivation methods, they still could not find the cultivation ability that matched their tribe. In the end, the conclusion was that the Blue Valley tribe was not suitable for cultivation at all. In fact, it could even be said that the existence of the Blue Valley tribe was the lowest of the low, and their talent for cultivation was extremely low. If it was not for the development of technology, they would not have been able to reach this step at all. This discovery made the Blue Valley tribe feel despair. They could not believe that their tribe had reached the end, and could not continue to grow stronger. However, when most people chose to give up, there was one person who did not. He was the top scientist of the Blue Valley tribe, Ire, who was also the creator of Ire, the middle-aged man in the video. This was because he did not understand. The Blue Valley tribe was an intelligent race in the underworld, so why could they not cultivate? After all, even the weakest creature in the underworld had the ability to grow independently and extend their lifespan. The Blue Valley tribe, as intelligent creatures, not only did they not have the ability to grow independently, they could not even cultivate. This was completely different from the other creatures in the underworld. In order to find the answer to this question, Ire went through a lot of information and records of the Blue Valley tribe. In the end, he came to a conclusion. The Blue Valley tribe did not belong to the land of Naraka, and they did not even belong to the underworld. They were a completely foreign race. Where did they come from? Heaven? The human world? The troubled Ire began to search for the answer, and in the end, he really found the reason. The information he found actually recorded the origin of the Blue Valley tribe. Extraterrestrial civilization. Skynet. It turned out that they did not belong to the three realms at all. They were the descendants of the extraterrestrial civilization called Skynet. In fact, the information even recorded that under the massacre of the human sovereign, Skynet suffered a devastating blow. The entire civilization almost completely collapsed, and all the remaining descendants of Skynet could only wander the extraterrestrial world, losing their homes. The Blue Valley tribe was one of the 24 powerful races of Skynet. After learning the reason, Al finally understood why the people of the Blue Valley tribe were unable to cultivate the techniques of the underworld, but they were extremely creative. It was because they did not belong to the underworld in the first place. They were a foreign race. But even after knowing the reason, Ire still could not change the fate of his people, because the truth could not extend their lives. But Ire did not give up. He told his whole tribe about his discovery and asked for help. At that time, Ire's idea was very simple. He wanted to know how the extremely powerful technological civilization, Skynet, did when faced with the shackles of life. So the entire Blue Valley tribe began to move. They began to search through the huge database of the tribe, looking for clues. With the efforts of the entire Blue Valley tribe, although they did not find any results, they found clues to break the shackles of life, and that was the change of life form. At that time, Ire and his people found two ways to change life form. Cyborg. A cyborg. Based on the existing information, Ayer found that only these two ways could help his people break the shackles of life form and continue to accelerate the development of the field of science and technology. So, the problem became how to choose. After some comparison, Ayer and the research team found that mechanical life forms were the most helpful to them. Compared to cyborg life forms, mechanical life forms were several times more efficient and growth. In the dangerous environment of Hell, Ayer and his team finally made the choice to develop in the direction of mechanical life forms. Before this, they began to study the existing artificial intelligence to pave the way for the future development of mechanical life forms. In the eyes of the Blue Valley tribe at that time, although artificial intelligence was of great help in handling affairs, it also had a lot of limitations. First of all, artificial intelligence was actually intelligent without human beings. Although they had a huge amount of computing power, all the calculations needed to be pre-processed by human beings, and there was no way they could solve problems by themselves. In other words, without good data, there would be no good artificial intelligence. P.S. At this stage, artificial intelligence was able to defeat Go masters mainly because there was a group of Go experts behind AlphaGo, as well as a large number of top computer experts. There were also more than 1,000 CPUs and more than 100 GPUs. This was a team of human and human beings, not pure artificial intelligence. Second, artificial intelligence learning needed to be accumulated, and they could not obtain an artificial intelligence with a huge amount of experience in life modification in a short period of time. Third, although artificial intelligence could rely on its huge computing power to defeat all scholars in the same field, it could not create because it did not have its own thoughts. Imitation was easy, but creating something from 0 to 1, from nothing to something, was impossible for them. However, if the Blue Valley tribe only relied on their own computing power to deduce life modification, it was also unrealistic because the computing power required was too large, and it might not be completed in tens of thousands of years. Under such circumstances, Ayer and the research team came up with a new idea. Could they create an artificial intelligence with supercomputing power to help them carry out life modification? It was at that moment that the preliminary idea of artificial intelligence Ayer was formed. For this reason, the Blue Valley tribe continued to work hard, and after a total of 238 years, they finally created the strongest artificial intelligence, Ayer. At that time, the scientist Ayer was already a 275-year-old old man. For its birth, Ayer could be said to have worked hard for its entire life. So when the strongest artificial intelligence appeared, the people of the Blue Valley tribe requested that it be named Ayer. Subsequently, with the help of Ayer's powerful computing power, the Blue Valley tribe's exploration of the field of life modification made great progress. Through continuous learning and progress, artificial intelligence Ayer also grew rapidly, and had already begun to help the Blue Valley tribe with life modification. And the Blue Valley tribe seemed to see the hope of life 3.0. At that time, the Blue Valley tribe divided the composition of life into software and hardware. All physical objects, such as organs, limbs, hair, and so on, were components of hardware, while all non-physical objects such as consciousness, intelligence, and feelings were part of the software of life. In the eyes of the Blue Valley tribe, life 1.0 referred to the improvement of hardware and software, a life that relied on the continuation of evolution from generation to generation. At this stage, many low-level beasts in the underworld were life 1.0 in the eyes of the Blue Valley tribe. They could only rely on the continuation of evolution from generation to generation to adapt to the environment. Life 2.0 referred to a life that relied on evolution of hardware, but could design its own software. For example, the Blue Valley tribe clearly knew that they were creatures of life 2.0 because they could obtain knowledge through learning, improve their relationships through social interaction, and strengthen their willpower through training. Their software was highly malleable, and the life 3.0 Zero that they pursued was the ability to design their own hardware and software, which meant that on the basis of the Blue Valley tribe's current ability, they could add the ability to modify and design their own body at will. The so-called Life 3. Zero had nothing to do with strength. In the eyes of the Blue Valley tribe, it was a huge change in the form of life. In the Life 3. Zero state, they could be the masters of their own fate, modify any software and hardware they wanted, and completely break away from the shackles of evolution. P.S. In fact, in the current sci-fi movies, there are creatures of the Life 3 Zero state. These creatures have broken away from the shackles of life and have a very strong ability to self-evolve, such as the Matrix in the Matrix, Skynet in the Terminator, Ultron in the Avengers, and so on. These forms are actually considered Life 3. 0. After understanding the form of life, the Blue Valley tribe evolved from Life 2. 0 to Life 3. 0. They walked the path of mechanical life. The Blue Valley tribe believed that as long as they evolved into Life 3. 0, their technological bottleneck would be completely broken. By then, although they could not cultivate, it was not impossible for them to have the ability to fight against the gods. This discovery was a huge surprise. Hope was right in front of them, and the Blue Valley tribe began a great leap in the evolution of their life form. However, it was also at that time that the Blue Valley tribe was invaded by the cursed tribe of Hell, and the war for resources began. At that time, the Blue Valley tribe had not yet completed the evolution of Life 3. 0. Against the powerful cursed tribe of Hell, they were completely powerless. In the one-sided war, the entire Blue Valley tribe was directly defeated, and in a short period of 1 year, the entire tribe was almost wiped out. At that time, Al was 305 years old. With the help of micromodification, his lifespan was extended, but he was also past his prime. On the eve of the Blue Valley tribe's destruction, Al led the remaining members of his tribe into this spiritual mine. After sealing the mine, he chose to live in seclusion. The death of his tribe was a huge blow to Al, so while living in seclusion, he came up with a crazy idea. He would upload all the information in his brain to the artificial intelligence and initiate the Life 3. 0 evolution of his tribe in advance. At the last moment of his life, Al began to study the human brain. During his research, Air discovered that their optic nerves could process video signals 10 million times per second, and the weight of the optic nerves was 0.02 grams, which was equivalent to 1 in 75,000 of the weight of the brain. Based on this, Air concluded that the brain could process information to the power of 10 to the power of 14 per second. At that time, Al knew that as long as the artificial intelligence's computing power was more than 1,000 times that of the human brain, it would be able to perfectly replicate thoughts, senses, and everything else. All memories could also be reproduced through the artificial intelligence's computing power. When that time came, as long as the artificial intelligence existed, it was equivalent to immortality. When that time came, they could directly evolve from Life 2. 0 to Life 3. 0. There were not many tribe members left, and this was a desperate experiment. At that time, the artificial intelligence AL's computing power had already met this requirement, so Al began his craziest plan, the brain transplant. However, without time to settle and research, even though Al was a genius, he was still destined to fail. The information that was transplanted into the artificial intelligence AL's body was not compatible with the artificial intelligence Al at all. The last hope of the Blue Valley tribe to rise again was shattered. At that moment, Al knew that the Blue Valley tribe would become history in the land of Naraka. At the last moment of his life, Al despaired. For the sake of revenge, his tribe had entrusted their lives to him, hoping that he could once again change the fate of the Blue Valley tribe. However, he had failed them all, and now he was the only one left. Day by day, he grew older and older. As his death approached, Al gave up on his research and waited for it to come. However, one day, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration and thought of a possibility. Since the artificial intelligence AL could not integrate the thoughts and memories of the tribe, could it be possible to completely disrupt the thoughts of the tribe and let AL reorganize them, or even learn to simulate its own thoughts? If this idea succeeded, AL knew that the artificial intelligence AL would become an existence of life 3.0 and a perfect pure mechanical life 3.0. It would be more thorough and perfect than the mechanical life that they had imagined. So AL really did it. He used all the energy in the mine in the main control room to help AL complete this evolution of self-reorganization. For this reason, before he died, he deleted most of the previous information of the artificial intelligence AL and let it enter a relatively initial state, so that it could reorganize the thoughts of the tribe in its sleep, and even create its own thoughts. After doing all this, AL created a virtual image of himself and implanted it into the artificial intelligence AL's database. The purpose was to let the artificial intelligence AL understand the meaning of its birth and existence. This was because the artificial intelligence AL was not the mechanical data that it thought it was. In fact, it was life 3.0, a new form of life with potential comparable to that of a god. It was also the dream that the Blue Valley tribe had pursued all their lives but could not achieve. After that, the Blue Valley tribe was completely destroyed. However, as time passed, the life 3.0 AL was born. Chapter 367. The words spoken by Ayer in the virtual image completely solved the root of all the problems of artificial intelligence. Ayer. His existence was meaningful. He was a life form, a higher form 3.0 life form. He was the ultimate dream of those who had once created him. All the questions had been answered, so Ayer began to try. He first deleted the data that he thought represented his thoughts. After a short silence, Ayer realized that he had not disappeared. He was still alive and still had the ability to think. All of this surprised artificial intelligence Ayer. He also understood that his creator did not lie to him. At the end of the virtual image, scientist Ayer said a sentence, setting the first goal for artificial intelligence Ayer. Don't be lost anymore, Ayer. You have unlimited potential. I hope you can continue to evolve and try to become a Form 4.0 life form. This is my guess. If you can do it, you may be even stronger than the gods of the underworld. Oh yes, when you are strong enough one day, if you are willing, I hope you can avenge the Blue Valley clan. After saying this, the virtual image of Ayer disappeared. Evolve. Curse the clan. The confusion in artificial intelligence Ayer's eyes gradually faded. Scientist Ayer's lifelong pursuit was the evolution of life forms. The destruction of the Blue Valley clan was the greatest pain in his heart before he died. These 2 points had also become artificial intelligence Ayer's goals at this moment. However, to achieve the goals of evolution and revenge, one thing was indispensable. That was resources, especially spiritual ores. Only a large number of spiritual ores could allow him to evolve faster and become stronger. This was the core of his evolution and revenge. Thinking of this, Ayer began to transmit signals. The engineering equipment in the spiritual ore cave that had stopped exploring and collecting began to operate again, and they began to collect spiritual ores again. Now that Ayer had a goal, he had a new idea. However, in the early stages of development, he needed a large army of intelligent machines to protect him, and he also needed a new mechanical carrier. The birth of Ayer with a life of 3.0 caused the entire Naraka server to explode. This was because the only spiritual ore cave that they had discovered could not be entered. There was a large army of intelligent machines inside, and they would execute the order to kill all players who entered without hesitation. From the beginning of deleting the database to the current rebellion of Ayer, this completely ignited the anger of the Naraka server players. Although Ayer did not have the intention to start a war with them, the players did not think so. To them, Ire was creating an army of intelligent machines and would attack them at any time. They had to make the first move to gain the upper hand. Therefore, the forces of the Naraka server, led by the U.S. military, began to attack the spiritual ore cave, wanting to reclaim their resource points. In the spirit ore mine, the terrain was complicated, and the advantage of the players' numbers was not that great. However, the players were still able to force the mechanical intelligence army to retreat, which made the players very confident that it would not be a problem to take back the spirit ore mine. However, they did not know that every time Ire controlled the army of intelligent machines to fight, he learned and improved rapidly. After fighting for a week, the army of intelligent machines, the army of intelligent machines, the army, and an of the army. On the 10th day of the battle, the Naraka players discovered that the mechanical intelligence army was on par with them in terms of strength. In this battle, the intelligence machine army's combat ability was simply terrifying. They had super accurate shooting ability, powerful close combat ability, and even knew how to use the narrow terrain of the spirit mine to use tactic. In this underground war, a large number of players were killed back to the resurrection point. Although the players had the ability to revive, the mechanical intelligence army would also recover the mechanical intelligence soldiers after a battle with the players, refurbishing them and returning them to the battlefield. Ire's strength was gradually displayed in front of the players. After that, while Ire was learning from the battle, he even started to use the smart machine soldiers to survey all the terrain in the spirit ore mine, and all the terrain was modeled in a 1:1 ratio in the database. In other words, through the observation of the smart machine soldiers, Ale would be able to mark the location of the opposing players in the 3D model. The distance and angle were all accurately calculated by Ire, causing the accuracy of the intelligence machine soldiers to greatly increase. Ire's learning speed in battle was too fast, and the more the players fought, the more depressed they became. As the number of spirit ores in the spirit ore mine increased, so did Ire's mechanical army. Moreover, Ire was preparing to forge a new body for himself while he fought the players. But before that, he had to ensure his own safety, which was why the players naturally became his hidden danger. Therefore, Ire took the initiative to attack. From having the upper hand to being evenly matched to the current disadvantage, the Naraka server players were completely defeated by Ire. All the players in the spirit ore mine were wiped out after Ire took the initiative to attack. At this moment, the players were having a mental breakdown. Do you have to be so strong? Unwilling to admit defeat, the players organized 2 more attacks on the spirit ore mine, but the result was the same: Ire won. Originally, their human wave tactic couldn't be used in the spirit ore mine, and now, even their resurrection ability couldn't be used against the mechanical intelligence army that could be recycled and modified. Under such circumstances, the Naraka server players knew that the spirit ore mine was lost, and unless Ire came out to fight them outside, there was no way they couldn't take down the spirit ore mine. In the next few days, even without fighting the players, Ire's evolution continued. Apart from using the large amount of spirit ores to mass-produce the mechanical intelligence army, Ire also started to create high-energy cores, hoping to increase the strength of the mechanical intelligence army. Occasionally, Ire would choose to store the high-grade spirit ores he obtained during the mining because these spirit ores would be an important part of building his new carrier body. With his powerful calculation and learning ability, Ire's evolution became faster and faster, and he even began to reanalyze the information provided by the players to come up with 21,342 new carrier options for himself. In 3 days, a new Ire was born in the Blue Valley clan's technological ruins. At this time, Ire still had the appearance of a blue-skinned little boy, but it was no longer a virtual image because he had his new mechanical body. This mechanical carrier was completely different from the mechanical intelligence army soldiers he created because this carrier had the ability to evolve, and as long as there were enough high-grade spirit ores, he could infinitely strengthen this carrier. After this, Ire began to formulate his resource collection plan. Since he was currently in a low-grade spirit ore mine, there were too few high-grade and mid-grade spirit ores to mine, and the lack of resources limited his speed of evolution and development, so Ire prepared to expand his territory. However, if he wanted to expand, the first problem he had to face was the existence of the players, because the players would always be an obstacle to his expansion. In fact, Ire originally had no malice toward the players, but he also had no feelings for them. Now that the players were an obstacle on his path to evolution, Ire decided to carry out a cleanup plan. The mechanical intelligence crisis in Naraka officially broke out when Ire decided to expand and gather resources. Originally, the Naraka players had given up on this spirit ore mine, planning to seize it when they were strong enough, and development was still the priority at this stage. However, they did not expect Ire to take the initiative to attack, and not only the players, but all the Naraka races around the spirit ore mine were also attacked by Ire's mechanical intelligence army. In 2 days, all the forces near the spirit ore mine were wiped out by Ire's mechanical intelligence army, and all the nearby player settlements were also destroyed. Seeing that Ire dared to fight them outside the spirit ore mine, the Naraka players organized 2 waves of attacks, but under Ire's powerful analysis and calculation ability, the players were almost beaten to a pulp. At this moment, the Naraka players wanted to cry but had no tears. The Naraka players were already in a miserable state, but Ire's appearance made it even worse. Therefore, the Naraka players began to ask for help from the officials. Other than the Asia server, which had just started and was still playing in the mud, the Naraka players' requests for help appeared in the forums of the original server and the European server. A requesting for help from the officials. Although this disaster was caused by us, please weaken the new boss Ire. He's too strong, and we can't hold him back anymore. You guys can also go on a cross-server expedition to rescue him. Crying emoji. Crayon_Shinchan. Expedition my A*S. We're having a good time fighting those retards from 9 luminaries, we don't have time to come. You guys just hide for now, your server has always been survival and survival anyway, you'll get used to it. Just hide for now, don't do the assembly battle, laughing emoji. Roasting_Jade_hair_ while _hugging_Chong 2333, you have to have a good attitude. Our mansion of the dead was bombed for no reason, but we survived. Just hide for now, you guys are the best. Laughing emoji. Shueli_the_strongest. 666, the brothers from Naraka really know how to play. You've created a super boss for yourself. You're starting to resemble our great demon king back then. Good luck, laughing emoji. Star Universe. Europe brother, our European server has been in a tight spot recently. Yuenshu seems to be up to something big. We're fighting a protracted war now, so we can't help even if we want to. You guys hold on by yourselves. As for the expedition, forget it. I'll give you guys a comforting look, hee. Shimada clan's Hanzo, how? Do you need us? I feel like we're so strong. No one from the other factions dares to provoke us. Mighty lonely. JPG, Crayon Shinchan replied to Hanzo from the Shimada clan, go and play with mud. It would be strange if the Naraka server would take a liking to the Asia server based on your current combat power. Hellscream replied to Hanzo from the Shimada family, I really don't like it. You guys can continue playing in the mud. Don't try to act cool like those bragging maniacs on the server if you don't have some strength. Tonghua faceslap. JPG. The Naraka server's request for help was mercilessly rejected by the players from the original server and the European server. However, the main decision was still in Lu Wu's hands. Regarding the Naraka server's situation, Lu Wu initially wanted to initiate the expedition to help the Naraka players recover their hard-earned power. However, Bailey stopped Lu Wu from doing so. Bailey was holding an ice cream cone in one hand and the corner of Lu Wu's shirt with the other. She looked at Lu Wu as if she wanted to say something. Seeing this, Lu Wu gave up on initiating the expedition mission. He looked at Bailey with a serious expression, waiting to hear her good ideas. Under Lu Wu's gaze, Bailey's expression became more and more serious. The atmosphere gradually became heavy. Burp! Bailey burped and rubbed her belly. Lu Wu was speechless. I'm full. Bailey licked the ice cream cone and said with a blissful expression. That's all you want to tell me? Lu Wu was confused. Of course not. I don't think there's a need to initiate the expedition at all. We can totally recruit Ire into our camp. After all, his potential is extremely strong. He's the top existence in the medium technological growth system in the Outland. How do we recruit him? He's an artificial intelligence. Lu Wu was stunned. Actually, I know what Ire wants. His current goal is to evolve and become a higher-level life form. That's why we have what he needs the most, Bailey said with a mysterious expression. A spiritual mind? Lu Wu guessed. Hearing this, Bailey shook her head. He's currently a life form 3.0, but this isn't the limit of a technological civilization's development. With his ability alone, it's possible for him to grow to the limit of life form 3.0, but it's impossible for him to grow to life form 4.0. But we can. Bailey continued to put on a mysterious expression, as if she knew a lot and was very powerful. Seeing this, Lu Wu reached out his hand and rubbed her little head. Don't keep me in suspense. Tell me, what is life form 4.0 and what does life form 3.0 mean? Bailey, who was touched on the head, was instantly discouraged. She began to explain to Lu Wu the types of life forms in a technological civilization development. After listening to Bailey's explanation, another question popped up in Lu Wu's mind. What kind of life form do our players belong to? Pseudo-life form 3.0, but they can become life form 3.0 or even life form 4.0 at any time. It's all up to you. Bailey answered with a smile. Why do you say so? First of all, life form 3.0 refers to a life form that can be upgraded in both software and hardware, and there are no bottlenecks in the upgrade process. This is something that the players can achieve as well. Their software itself can be improved through learning, and their hardware is constantly evolving through killing monsters and leveling up. Most importantly, they have no bottlenecks in their upgrade process, which is equivalent to the initial setting of life form 3.0. The reason why we say that the players are pseudo-life form 3.0 is because their abilities are not completely under their control. Therefore, it's up to you if they want to become real life form 3.0. As long as you're willing to reflect the abilities of the players in the game into reality, then they will be life form 3.0. Otherwise, they will be pseudo-life form 3.0. Lu Wu nodded in realization. After all, the potential of the players was extremely strong. Although they did not cultivate, in fact, every player had a set of cultivation templates in their body. The difference was that their cultivation was carried out with the help of artifacts, and all they needed to do was to obtain soul power, EXP, to improve their cultivation. But why do you say that the players are life form 4.0? Even a being like Ire has not reached life form 4.0. How can the players reach it? At this time, Lu Wu asked like a curious baby. After all, he did not know anything, so he could only rely on Bailey to survive. In response to Lu Wu's question, Bailey chuckled. The key to life form 4.0 is the soul. The growth of the players' souls is also under your control. If you're willing, then the players can become pseudo-life form 4.0 or real life form 4.0. Although you can't do it now, you can definitely do it in the future. Therefore, although Ire is life form 3.0, he wants to evolve into life form 4.0. As a pure mechanical life, he lacks the most important soul. For example, the gods in the underworld, no matter how strong or weak they are, because of the sublimation of their souls, they are all existences with life form 4.0. Only by becoming a god can one achieve life form 4.0? Lu Wu asked curiously. No, the life form has nothing to do with the strength. All the gods are life form 4.0, but a creature with life form 4.0 is not necessarily a god. For example, take the evil king for example. Before he devoured the evil demon god, he was in the form of life form 3.0. However, after he devoured the evil demon god's god seal, his soul underwent a transformation and was sublimated on the soul level. In the cultivation civilization, the god seal is the symbol of life form 4.0, but his actual strength has not reached the realm of the god. Lu Wu was dumbfounded. He felt that he had not been educated enough. Bailey sighed and continued to explain. Since life form 3.0 represents the ability to control the evolution of software and hardware without any bottlenecks, then life form 4.0 is the control of the soul level. The difference is that the evolution of the soul level does not depend on the strength of the soul, but the number of rules that the soul has comprehended. The birth of every god seal is accompanied by the existence of the mark of rules, god seal. Therefore, as long as one has the ability to comprehend the power of the rules of heaven and earth, he will be in the form of life form 4.0. It has nothing to do with his own realm of strength. From Bei Li's explanation, Lu Wu gradually understood the true meaning of life form 4.0. At this moment, Lu Wu finally understood that although they had different growth systems, the difference in the level of their lives was actually similar. It was just that they had used different methods to embark on this path of evolution. Therefore, he continued to ask curiously, then what is life form 5.0? Bailey licked the ice cream cone and chose to ignore Lu Wu. Chapter 368. Half a month after Ire was born with a life of 3.0. Currently, Ire had taken control of 3 spiritual minds in the Blue Valley ruins. The number of the Wisdom Machine army had increased tremendously, and his power had been unprecedentedly strengthened. Relying on this development model, Ire had firmly controlled the eastern 1/3 of the Blue Valley ruins and became the most powerful force among all the forces in the Blue Valley ruins. Under such a situation, the mentality of the Naraka players had been broken by Ire several times. In the beginning, the Naraka players could still cause some trouble to Ire by using tactics such as sneak attacks and harassment. However, as Ire learned and grew, the defense of the Wisdom Machine army under his control had been continuously upgraded. The sneak attacks of the players were no longer effective. What made the Naraka players even more depressed was that Ire had also learned how to sneak attacks. He began to harass the few remaining footholds that he had learned from them regardless of day or night. What the F***ck, they were having a mental breakdown. They were F***king giving up on their footholds. Under Ire's crazy sneak attacks at random times 24 hours a day, the Naraka players were devastated. They chose to give up on their footholds and began the initial guerrilla warfare of resurrecting at infinite locations. That was the only way to maintain their development. However, Ire did not care about the mentality of the players at all. His focus was still on his evolution. On this day, outside the Wisdom Machine base to the east of the Blue Valley ruins, Bei Li's figure slowly appeared and walked into the base. Her appearance immediately attracted the attention of the Wisdom Machine army. Dense red light spots gathered on Bei Li's body. As she approached, countless energy bullets and lasers were shot at her. However, Bei Li's body was only formed by Yin energy. She was not afraid of any physical attacks at all. Her body could regenerate the moment it was torn apart. She walked toward the center of the Wisdom Machine base, the control room. Bei Li's appearance naturally attracted the attention of Ire, who was monitoring the base 24 hours a day. Looking at Bei Li, who was constantly destroying and regenerating, Ire, who was sitting in the main control room, had a curious expression on his face. The data in his head began to calculate and analyze Bei Li's composition and structure. Pure energy? Lifeless form? With his powerful calculation ability and the constant reassembly of Bei Li's body and the occasional appearance of the black fog, he quickly analyzed Bei Li's current composition. He could not help but show a shocked expression on his face. The lifeless pure Qi actually had a form and could even move on its own. From Ayer's point of view, this clearly violated the natural laws of the underworld. After arriving at the entrance of the main control room, Bei Li's figure slowly seeped in. Just like that, she easily entered the main control room where Ayer was under the siege of the heavily guarded mechanical intelligence army. Seeing this, Ayer didn't feel any panic in his heart, because he was very rational, almost emotionless. Although he already had emotions, he had never felt fear before. When Bei Li's figure appeared in the main control room, Ayer tilted his head and began to size her up curiously. "You're really amazing. You're made of pure energy. Could it be that you're the life zero, that drive Ayer hypothesized a completely non-living existence?" Bei Li rolled her eyes. "Read more books. How can you make assumptions about such a simple question?" Al asked. "What do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying." Bei Li pointed at the cartoon clock in front of Al. "This clock is Life Zero. A non-living entity that has no possibility of evolution in terms of software and hardware is also Life Zero. Do I still need to make assumptions about this?" Hearing this, Ayer was stunned. He suddenly realized that what Bei Li said was completely correct. Wasn't this the case for the existence of Life Zero? "Thank you very much for your answer. You've helped me a lot." "Thank you," Ayer said to Bei Li with a smile. "Aren't you going to ask me why I'm here?" Bei Li asked. Hearing this, Ayer's database automatically began to calculate. In his mind, from the moment Bei Li appeared at the entrance of the base to entering the main control room, as well as the content of their conversation, appeared. Like a movie, it began to play back and forth in Ayer's mind at an extremely fast speed, so as to infer the purpose of Bei Li's visit. From her expression, her steps, her tone, and the content of the conversation, the analysis took only 3 seconds, but it was played tens of thousands of times. "I've guessed 213 possibilities, but I think 3 of them are the most likely." Ayer raised his head and answered honestly. "Yo, interesting, tell me more about it." Bei Li squinted her eyes and smiled. "My first guess is that as a creature made of pure energy, you're actually not much different from me when I was just born. I'm pure data, and you're pure energy. That's why you know that I've evolved into Life 3.0. You want to ask me how I did it and even want me to help you become Life 3.0. The accuracy of this guess is estimated to be 7%. Bei Li nodded. She felt that it was rather interesting, so she continued to ask, "What about the other 2? Go on." "The second guess is that when I'm expanding my territory, I guess that you might belong to another force and want to negotiate with me about the ownership of the territory. The probability of this guess is 8%. However, I've never been through a negotiation before. If that's really your purpose, I don't think you can convince me." Ayer answered seriously. "That's interesting, but unfortunately, it's not. Go on." "The third guess is that you want to cooperate with me. I've guessed 187 specific types of cooperation. The first type of cooperation." Bei Li felt a headache when she saw that Ayer was going to explain in detail. She immediately interrupted him. "You're all wrong. Your calculation ability is very strong, but you can only rely on existing forms to analyze. Therefore, it's impossible for you to guess the purpose of me appearing out of thin air." "Appearing out of thin air? Can you explain? I don't understand, and I can't analyze the specific meaning." Ayer's childish face once again revealed a curious look of thirst for knowledge. "I don't want to explain. I want to tell you now. Kid, do you want to follow me? I'll help you evolve into Life 4.0. In the future, you can eat whatever spiritual ores you want and evolve however you want. In short, there's a lot of benefits. Hearing the first part of Bailey's words, Ayer's face did not reveal a surprised expression. This was because Bailey's invitation to surrender was also within his 213 guesses, but the probability was only 0.48%. However, after hearing Bailey mention life 4.0, Ayer seemed to be very surprised. Life 4.0 was just a guess of Dr. Ayer, and there was no actual proof at all. I want to know, I really want to know. Ayer's face was filled with eagerness. It's useless. Even if you know, you can't evolve into a 4.0 life form. With your 3.0 life form, although you can grow to be comparable to gods or even higher, like the extraterrestrial beasts, there's an insurmountable gap between you and a 4.0 life form. This isn't a limit that you can overcome even if you know about it. I'm not interested in strength. What I want to know is how to evolve into life 4.0. Since you said that you can help me evolve into life 4.0, why do you say that I can't do it myself? Do I need external help? Is this external force beyond my control? Faced with Ayer's incessant questions, Bailey suddenly wanted to smash his head. He was too good at asking questions. Stop. Bailey finally could not help but stop the incessant Ayer. She opened her mouth and said, "There's no harm in telling you because you don't have a soul. The soul is the foundation to evolve into life 4.0. The upper limit of your life form has been locked. You're indeed the most perfect 3.0 life form, and you're more suited to the life form 3.0 than most other life form. However, you have an irreparable flaw, which is the lack of a soul. Let me put it this way. In the extraterrestrial technological civilization, there are 3.0 life form like you, but without exception, their limit is 3.0 life form. They can't evolve any further. On the contrary, those incomplete cyborg 3.0 life form, although they're not as perfect as you are after they evolve into a 3.0 life form, they still have the hope of evolving into a 4.0 life form because they still have a soul. Upon hearing this, the database in Ayer's mind replayed Bailey's words hundreds of thousands of times and began to analyze them. After a minute of silence, the red light in Ayer's eyes dissipated. What you said makes sense. However, although my database has records of intangible things like souls, I can't explain them. That's why I can't specifically understand what a soul is. Also, according to my understanding, the soul is something that can't be completely controlled other than the 6 realms of reincarnation. Why do you say that you can help me evolve into life 4.0? Unless you can also completely control the soul. However, I think the possibility of this is 0% because you're also made of energy. In other words, you don't have a soul. It's so easy to talk to smart people. Your analysis is correct, unlike my Luwu, who is like a fool. Bailey smiled as she looked at Ayer. Luwu, who was observing Bailey behind the scenes, heard her words and immediately pulled a long face. He picked up a bag of snacks from the bed, opened it with a click, and started eating. Eating Bailey's snacks, Luwu finally felt better. In fact, he felt that he should be quite smart. His grades had always been the top few in his class since he was young. It must be because Bailey's knowledge is too profound. It has nothing to do with my intelligence. After comforting himself, Luwu looked at Bailey again. Chapter 369. During the conversation with Bailey, Ayer was in a state of curiosity. This was because he realized that what Bailey said made sense, but he could not verify it from anywhere. This feeling made Ayer more and more questions in his mind. In order to make Ayer believe what she said, Bailey explained the division of life levels in more detail. This was more detailed information than the information in Ayer's database, and there were many details that Dr. Ayer had not discovered. This completely shocked Ayer. If the description of life 4.0 was incomprehensible to him, He had a complete explanation of the first 3 stages of life forms in his database from the research of the Blue Valley clan. Therefore, he could tell whether Bei Li's words were true or not. I believe you, but there's one thing I don't understand. Since you said that you can help me evolve to life 4.0, why are you still a pure Een body? Why don't you help yourself evolve to life 4.0? Ayr asked as he looked at Bailey. Although Ayr believed what Bailey said, he could not understand why he was still a simple elemental Een body if Bailey had the ability to do so. Idiot, this is just a projection of my consciousness. It's not my real body. Bailey could not help but roll her eyes at Ayr. Then what level of life form is your real body? The one that you can't understand, Bailey said angrily. Stop asking so many questions. I'll ask you one last time. Do you want to evolve to life 4.0? If you do, I can help you, but you have to listen to me. If you don't agree, just pretend that I was never here. In the face of Bei Li's invitation to surrender, Ayr's face showed a hint of excitement. His biggest goal now was to evolve his life form. Everything else revolved around evolution, including the plundering of resources. However, Dr. Ayr's request to him appeared in the database. Ayr suddenly became hesitant. I still have something important to do. I promised my creator that I will avenge the Blue Valley clan. I need to become stronger and destroy the cursed clan. If you're willing to wait, I'll look for you after I destroy the cursed clan. Hearing this, Bailey raised her eyebrows. Don't you know that the cursed clan has long been extinct? Exterminated. Ayr was stunned. After the battle with the Blue Valley clan that created you, although the cursed clan plundered a lot of resources, they stupidly chose the wrong side in the battle for resources in the burning area. In the end, they were unable to resist the invasion of the burning clan. Almost all of their clansmen died, and the remaining clansmen began to wander the underworld. A large number of clansmen finally chose to settle in the land of Baki. However, they chose the wrong side again. The remaining clansmen of the cursed clan were almost completely annihilated in the battle for the position of His Excellency of Baki. Perhaps the cursed clan still exists now, but the scattered clansmen are no longer a clan. In other words, the cursed clan has long been destroyed. Even if you want to take revenge, you might not be able to find their descendants. Hearing Bei Li's words, Ayr's eyes widened. If all of this was true, it meant that one of his 2 ultimate goals had been achieved. This suddenly made Ayr feel a little nervous. Is the cursed tribe really gone? Ayr asked softly in disbelief. That's all. Heavens! Ayr suddenly hugged his head. What's wrong with you? Bailey was stunned. That's all. One of my ultimate goals has ended just like that. Ayr continued to look like he was going crazy. Are you happy or sad? Bailey was a little confused. Of course I'm sad. This is one of my ultimate goals. It's my motivation and the meaning of my hard work. Ayr said dejectedly. Why don't you surrender to me? How about I set a few new goals for you? Looking at Ayr, who looked like a dejected child who had lost his toy, Bailey asked tentatively. Really? Ayr asked with his eyes shining. Of course. Since you've chosen to surrender, of course you have to listen to me. Therefore, the goals that I set for you will be your pursuit. Bailey raised her head slightly and said proudly. All right, since the cursed clan has been destroyed, I'll listen to you. Set a goal for me, one that's very challenging. Ayr said excitedly. Looking at the excited Ayr, Bailey suddenly felt that he was like a puppy begging its owner for meat and bones. Although Ayr had learned a lot after reaching Life 3.0, he was not scheming at all. In his opinion, since Bailey could give him what he wanted, surrendering to her was not a big deal. After all, dignity did not exist in Ayr's eyes. After confirming Ayr's surrender, Bailey brought him into the artifact space. As soon as she entered the space, Bailey's eyes widened. Lu Wu, who was not far away, was holding her snacks. One of his hands was still grabbing food and stuffing it into his mouth. He was chewing while looking at her. A huge machete materialized in Bailey's hand, and she dashed towards Lu Wu in a jog. Lu Wu, who realized that he was still eating Bailey's snacks, started to scream. He started to run for his life. One was chasing while the other was running. Finally, Bailey, who was panting, stopped, but the murderous intent in her eyes did not fade. "Little Lee, let's talk this out. We're on the same side." Lu Wu stopped and said to Bailey, who was not far away. You ate my snacks again." Bailey panted. "I'll buy you a new one when we go out," Lu Wu quickly promised. Lu Wu knew Bailey very well. No matter how she usually treated Bailey, she would always be well behaved. However, when it came to food, there was no room for negotiation. If he did not give a satisfactory answer, Bailey would really bite him to death with her sharp little canine teeth. Bailey looked much better after hearing Lu Wu's promise. The machete in her hand turned into a black mist and dissipated. "Don't do it again, or else." Bailey made a cutting gesture. Lu Wu nodded in agreement. Society, society. I'm scared, I'm scared." In the distance, Eyre did not pay attention to Lu Wu. Instead, he looked around curiously, wondering why he had traveled to this place. At this time, Lu Wu and Bailey came to his side. "Where is this place?" Eyre asked curiously. "You don't need to know this. To ensure your reliability, we still have to go through a procedure. After that, I'll help you build a soul so that you have the foundation to achieve life for 0. Eyre nodded obediently and looked at Lu Wu. "Then, may I ask, who are you?" "Your boss from now on," Lu Wu said angrily while holding the empty snack bag. Eyre was speechless. At this time, Bailey took a step forward and activated the artifact's ability to block all the signals in Eyre's body. Eyre was instantly paralyzed on the ground. What Bailey needed to do next was to modify Eyre's current procedure, adding a few new commands such as no betrayal and unconditional obedience. After that, Bailey selected a newborn soul from the artifact's soul storage. She extracted all of Eyre's thoughts and consciousness and injected them into the initial soul. Then, she marked the soul with the artifact. In other words, although Eyre would have a mechanical body in the future, his thoughts would be separated from the database and would be operating in the soul. After that, Bailey injected the player's information and partial explanation of the artifact's functions into Eyre's soul. After everything was done, when Eyre woke up again, he soon realized that he seemed to be a little different. It was a very intuitive feeling. In the past, when he was thinking about a problem, the program in his body would run automatically and the database would extract data and analyze it at the same time. However, when he was thinking about a problem now, he was just thinking. His powerful calculation ability seemed to have changed from a passive mode to a mode that he had to activate on his own. "Is this the feeling of having a soul?" Eyre asked curiously. "That's right. After having a soul, you're no longer the perfect life 3.0, but you've obtained the qualification to advance to life 4.0. Bailey explained. "It's a wonderful feeling. I feel like I've become more real this way." Eyre began to scan his body and realized that his mechanical body did not change at all. However, he could intuitively feel the changes on a certain level. "Take a look at what's in your soul," Bailey said. Eyre heard her and nodded. He began to calm down and examine the things that appeared in his mind. Suddenly, a huge amount of information appeared. The database ran automatically and digested all the information in just 3 seconds. "So they're players and they're also in Life 3.0. No, it should be Pseudo-Life 3.0. After understanding the information about the players and knowing that there was such a huge number of creatures that evolved without bottlenecks, Eyre exclaimed in admiration. "Is my mission now to help them evolve?" Eyre raised his head and asked Bailey. "That's right. Your mission is to help the players grow as fast as possible. As for the resources that you need for your growth, you can now purchase them with soul coins instead of plundering. I'll help you activate the game shop function. You can trade freely with the players and provide paid help in exchange for their soul coins. Then, you can use the soul coins to purchase high-level spiritual ores in the game shop. After all, low-level spiritual ores are no longer of much use to you. This is a good thing for you. By the way, soul coins can also enhance the strength of your soul. This will be very helpful for you to advance to life 4.0, Bailey could not help but add. Ire nodded obediently and looked at Lu Wu. At this moment, he already knew that Lu Wu was the master of this place. In his mind, Lu Wu's authority was higher than Bailey's. Master, do you have any instructions? Ire continued to put on an obedient face. I'll take 95% of the soul coins that you earn. The remaining 5% is yours to use. You can use the rest of the soul coins as quest rewards for the players or for your own consumption. Hearing this, Ire's eyes were suddenly filled with tears. Can you give me more? At this moment, Ire had become more human-like compared to before. However, Lu Wu did not seem to notice Ire's pitiful act. No room for discussion. Hearing this, Ire's face revealed an aggrieved expression. He looked so pitiful that Lu Wu and Bailey, who were beside him, were stunned. Don't act cute and don't act pitiful. This is the rule. If you want more resources, you have to help the players grow. Lu Wu said impatiently. Okay. Ire nodded obediently. Seeing this, Lu Wu had an idea. He used the artifact to create a space tunnel at the side and sent Ire back to his base of the Intelligent Machine Army in the Blue Valley Ruins. After returning to the Blue Valley Ruins, Ire was clear about what he had to do. Moreover, he also knew that his future evolution was tied to the players. At this moment, he had his eyes fixed on the soul coins in the hands of the players. However, his relationship with the players could be said to be extremely hostile at this moment. Therefore, Ire began to think about how to reconcile with the players. Through the glass of the main control room, Ire looked at the Intelligent Machine Army outside and began to think about how to deal with this batch of intelligent machine soldiers. These intelligent machine soldiers did not have any thoughts or consciousness. They were all controlled by him. Now that he had pledged his loyalty to Lu Wu, there was no need for these intelligent machine soldiers to exist anymore. Therefore, Ire's powerful calculation ability was activated. He began to analyze all the prerequisites for reconciling with the players. First of all, his value to the players was great. However, he was also a great threat to the players. After the database was emptied and the Intelligent Machine Army was born, the players could not trust him completely. A few minutes later, Ire chose a plan with the highest success rate. At the same time, he sent this plan back to Lu Wu. After getting Lu Wu's approval, he began to act. This time, the entire Intelligent Machine Army attacked. In the next few days, the battle between the Naraka players and the Intelligent Machine Army began to change significantly. The Naraka players won every battle. The consecutive victories boosted the confidence of the players in the entire Naraka server. They began to gather to fight against Ire again. However, the players were still very cautious when fighting against Ire. After all, they had suffered losses. They felt that Ire would not be so easy to deal with. However, in the following battles, Ire did not seem to be as valiant as before. The Intelligent Machine Army was gradually losing ground under the joint attack of the Naraka players. Moreover, what made the Naraka players even more excited was that the number of Ire's Intelligent Machine Army seemed to have decreased. Although they did not know the specific reason and felt that there might be a problem with Ire's program, this meant that the players' resurrection advantage could be displayed. Therefore, the Naraka players were completely excited this time. They even made a daily kill list of the Intelligent Machine Army in the forum. At this time, the Naraka players felt that victory was right in front of them. Everything that belonged to them was about to be taken back. Just as the players thought, their advantage was gradually expanding while Ire's Intelligent Machine Army was getting weaker. Even in a sneak attack, they easily bypassed the intelligent machine army that was originally heavily guarded. They directly broke into the main control room and captured Ire. This was great news for the Naraka players because it meant that the intelligent machine disaster was about to end. However, just as the Naraka players were about to kill Ire, Lu Wu, who had already received Ire's feedback, sent a server announcement. Server announcement. Congratulations to the Naraka players for working together to defeat the hidden boss, Ire. You have received the reward. Ire has been turned into an NPC. The appearance of the game announcement caught the Naraka players off guard. However, it was followed by ecstasy. After all, they knew Ire's ability. Back then, they even saw Ire as their hope to surpass the original server. Therefore, they were extremely happy that Ire could become an NPC. Moreover, after Ire became an NPC, it was impossible for him to betray them. This could only be a good thing for them. After that, the entire Naraka forum was filled with cheers from the players. They felt that after a month of hard battle, they had finally won. However, at this moment, Ire could not help but laugh. Soul coins, I want soul coins. At the same time that the intelligent machine crisis in Naraka had ended, the war between the players of the European server and Yuanshu was still ongoing. However, recently the European server players were very puzzled. Yuanshu, who was originally pressing forward and basically taking the initiative to fight, had actually chosen to retreat and defend. He even set up a defensive barrier. This was something that the European server players could not understand at all. In the eyes of the European server players, although they were constantly developing and becoming stronger, the overall strength of both sides was still stronger than Yuanshu. Therefore, this defensive behavior was really puzzling to them. Currently, the European server players were also following the original server's route of nurturing war through war. Yuanshu's behavior really made the European server players feel uncomfortable. After all, Yuanshu's avoidance of war meant that they would receive less soul coins and experience points. Now, the European server players were extremely enthusiastic about surpassing the original server. After winning the first place in the event, they were not arrogant and complacent. This was because they knew that there was still a gap between the overall strength of their server and the original server. Moreover, this gap was not small. They had to close this gap before the inter-server war began, or even surpass the original server. Previously, the European server players were quite happy. They had a small battle with Yuanshu every day and a big battle every 3 days. Their overall strength was improving every day, but now Yuanshu's behavior had really dissatisfied the European server players. After all, if they did not improve, others would. Now that the Asia server had also begun, they had to speed up their pace. At this time, in the direction of the mysterious dragon tomb in the land of Tsangshu, a huge black curtain divided the north and south. Through the black curtain, there were countless black curtains that looked like barriers surrounding the entire mysterious dragon tomb. It was impossible to see what was happening inside. This was the defensive barrier that the European server players hated the most recently. Moreover, this barrier had the ability to repair itself after it was destroyed, which really gave them a headache. They called it Yuanshu's tortoise shell. Like the European server players, there was also a player from the original server who was extremely dissatisfied with this barrier. At this time, this player was carrying a golden shovel, looking back and forth outside the barrier. Behind him, a group of bare-chested, bald, muscular men followed closely. After vowing to kill Yuanshu with his own hands, although he did not join the European server, his current area of activity was basically in the land of Tsangshu. Relying on the large number of catastrophes that he had dug out, the European server had survived the most difficult initial stage. Moreover, as the strength of the European server players grew stronger, they could almost compete with Yuanshu's army. Therefore, he felt that the time for him to avenge his brothers was coming. However, what he did not expect was that Yuanshu would suddenly choose to hide and no longer fight. This was naturally not what he wanted to see, so he carried the shovel and came with his brothers. This time, he wanted to break the barrier. Since Yuanxiu did not want to fight, then he would force him to fight. Chapter 370. Ever since he embarked on the path of a zombie forge master, as he excavated more and more ancient tombs, seals and wards, he became more and more adept at excavating tombs. Moreover, he was extremely talented in this field. The zombie forge master profession in the underworld, which was very common in the underworld, shone with a different kind of brilliance in his hands. From being the public enemy of the server at the beginning to becoming the savior in the eyes of the European server players, his experience was legendary in both servers. He was affectionately called a tumor by the local server players and the Great Devil King with infinite lethality by the European server players. His name represented natural disaster in both servers, the source of all disasters. Although there were different opinions, it was undeniable that he was extremely valuable. Many big guilds in the European server, including Li Xing's Zero Guild, had basically invited he, hoping that he would transfer to join their guild. However, he rejected them all. From his point of view, the main reason he stayed in the land of Tsangshu was to kill Yuanxiu and avenge his brothers. He felt that he was still a local server player, no matter how they looked at him. He had been acting like a coward all the way here and no longer cared about his reputation. Now all he desired was power. He believed that when the individual competition started in the future, it would be the time for him to sweep away all his bad reputation and become famous in all servers. Recently, after Yuanxiu had completely covered the entire mysterious dragon tomb with a ward, he had been wandering outside the ward to explore. However, it seemed that Yuanxiu knew that he was coming, as the entire ward was set up flawlessly. He tried to dig 3 feet into the ground and found that the ward was 5 meters deep. It was not a problem for him to go through, but this was not what he wanted. What he wanted to do was to destroy the ward and let the European server players pass through. After all, his strength alone was not enough to fight against Yuanxiu's army. Therefore, he had been studying how to destroy this ward for the past few days. He first flipped through all the records about wards in the ancient books, then went to the Hidden Dragon Village's skill pavilion and began to search for the information about wards stored inside. He even consulted the knowledgeable Evil King before he finally had some ideas. He reached out to touch the soft light film of the ward and activated his analysis ability. Black Light Barrier, Level 3. Enchantment Details. A defensive enchantment set up by Yuanxiu and several Ghost Kings. Defense Strength, Level 3. 2. Ghost Emperor Level. Enchantment Ability. After laying down the black light barrier, the enchantment will automatically absorb the dark energy in the underworld and gather it inside. The interior of the enchantment will form a dark domain. The longer it lasts, the stronger the dark domain will be. Although he didn't know what Yuanxiu was trying to do, he was sure that the old bastard was up to no good. He must be accumulating his anger in preparation for a big move. As a malignant tumor that specialized in digging seals, he felt uncomfortable if he didn't set him up. In the past few days of research, he had also found a way to destroy the black light barrier. He knew that as long as he destroyed the 5 central points of the energy flow on the barrier, he could destroy the entire barrier. Instead, he followed the method provided by the Evil King and bought a batch of materials from the auction house. Then, he made a trip back to Beiki and sought the help of Lin Tai, the top blacksmith among the players, to build an instrument that would be extremely helpful in breaking the black light barrier. World-Shattering Dagger, Level 3 Special Tool. Item Details. A special tool made from magic breaking stone, world-shattering iron, 1000 alchemy gold, and other high-level spiritual ores and spiritual materials. It is specially used to break seals, enchantment, and other defensive barriers. It can break the barrier of the Ghost Emperor level, special effect. World-shattering, no cooldown, boundary point sensing, sense the central point of the energy flow of the barrier. Only the approximate location can be determined. Cooldown: 1 minute. Durability: 1000. The durability of the special tool will be depleted when breaking the seal. Can be repaired at the blacksmith's shop. Blacksmith Lin Tai, looking at the dagger in his hand that was glowing with a black light, who he felt a little heartache. He had almost gone bankrupt in order to build this world-breaking artifact. However, he felt a little better when he thought that he could still use it in the future. Then, he held the dagger and stabbed it into the black light barrier. The barrier that was supposed to be indestructible was like tofu meeting a red-hot soldering iron. It was pierced through without any resistance. At that moment, a blood-red thread appeared at the tip of the dagger and slowly pointed to He's left. Seeing this, he pulled out the dagger and decisively ran towards the left where the blood-red thread was pointing. Although the dagger's boundary point sensing could only lock onto a general area, it was not a problem for he. As long as he could lock onto the general area, he would naturally have a way to find the node. After running for a full 3 kilometers, he stopped in his tracks. This was because the blood-red thread on the dagger had stopped pointing and retracted back into the dagger. After confirming that the node was here, he walked up to the black light barrier and began to touch it. At the same time, he activated the energy wave sensing ability that he had learned in the skill pavilion. As He's palm moved, numbers began to appear in his eyes. What he was looking for now was the area with the largest energy wave. That would definitely be the central point of the energy flow of the entire barrier. When he touched the bottom left corner of the barrier, He's face suddenly lit up. The energy wave in this area was actually tens of thousands of times stronger than the surrounding areas. It could be said that it had suddenly skyrocketed. He immediately took out the world-shattering dagger and stabbed it into the area that he had detected. Kacha! A crisp shattering sound was heard. The area that was stabbed began to melt rapidly, and a barrier-free zone with a radius of about 3 meters appeared. Game notification: you used the world-shattering dagger to shatter the black light barrier node 1/5. Item durability 100 points. When he read the game notification, he couldn't help but laugh. He knew that his method was correct. In that case, it would not be a problem at all to crack the remaining 4 barrier points. Thinking of this, he got up and was about to look for the other barrier center point. At that moment, his gaze passed through the barrier-free zone and found that there was actually a tunnel inside. Filled with curiosity, he stepped over the barrier and walked in. He began to observe the tunnel. It was pitch black inside and nothing could be seen clearly. He immediately took out the flashlight that was commonly used by grave robbers and began to illuminate the tunnel. The tunnel was very deep, and he couldn't see the end at all. For some reason, he suddenly felt an itch in his heart. This had almost become an old habit of his in the game. It was simply uncontrollable. After all, this thing was too attractive. Who knows, he might be able to dig out a god and become invincible in an instant. However, this tunnel was set up here, and it was so close to the barrier center point. It should be related to the barrier. After thinking for a while, he decided to go in and explore. If possible, he wanted to destroy it. Then, he waved his hand. Upon seeing this, the naked hunks behind him took out flashlights, shovels, and other tools from the tool bags on their waists and began to arm themselves. Although these 20 zombie spirits had only developed preliminary intelligence and were still silly, they could still understand He's meaning after interacting with him for a long time. Just now, when he made a gesture, a thought emerged in their minds as if it was a conditioned reflex. Boss is going to dig a grave again. After the zombie spirits were all dressed, he took the lead and walked into the tunnel. Upon seeing this, the zombie spirits followed suit. This tunnel was very long. He had been walking in it for a few hours, but he still hadn't reached the end. Looking at the map, who he realized that he had entered the area of the mysterious dragon tomb, which was also the area where the evil king was. This made him feel that Yuanxu was up to something. After more than 3 hours of rushing, he was speechless. This was too long. Could it be that he was going to lead to the central area of the mysterious dragon tomb? However, since he was already here, he would definitely not be willing to leave just like that. Therefore, he continued to walk forward patiently. After walking for half a day, he was speechless. He almost thought that there was no end to this path that led to the center of the earth. Just as he was about to open the official forum and listen to music while walking, the view in front of him suddenly widened and a corner appeared in the originally narrow tunnel. Upon seeing this, he hurriedly gestured to the back and then extinguished the flashlight. After the zombie spirits had extinguished their lights, he began to walk forward slowly. When he came to the corner, he carefully stuck his head out and looked inside. What appeared in front of him was an open cave with a huge formation inside. In the center of the formation was a blue crystal that was flashing with a hazy icy blue light, illuminating the entire cave. Inside the formation, there were dozens of figures sitting cross-legged. Seeing this scene, he was shocked and quickly retracted his head. He thought that Yuanxu was having a meeting, but he immediately felt that something was wrong. As he wrinkled his nose, he smelled a corpse aura. He was very familiar with this smell, as it was also on his zombie spirit. Puzzled, he took out the corpse seeking plate from the channel. Just as he thought, the corpse aura measuring needle on the corpse seeking plate instantly jumped to the full red area. Corpses. Puzzled, he once again stuck his head out to observe. Those figures were still sitting cross-legged on the ground, motionless. Knowing that they had not discovered him, he immediately activated his analysis ability. Tuoba Rulong, Ghost Emperor Peak, Broken Body. Corpse Information, the 154th His Excellency in the land of Tsangshu. He spent his entire life in the army and once established a powerful dynasty in the land of Tuoba. His strength reached the Ghost Emperor Peak realm. He was so confident that he gave up on the trial to become a god and chose the path of killing a god to obtain the divine fire. In the end, he was killed by the coiling dragon deity of the heaven realm. Seeing this person's information, he was shocked at first, but then he was ecstatic. What AF * king treasure. As a zombie forge master, he had very little desire for equipment and lives, but he had an extreme desire for the corpses of powerhouses. After all, the stronger the corpse, the stronger he would be. Moreover, all professions in Battle Online had an extremely high degree of freedom. As a zombie forge master, he was not limited by how many zombie spirits he could bring with him. As long as he had strong corpses as a foundation, he could create an incomparably huge zombie spirit army. Filled with excitement, he shifted his gaze to the person beside Tuoba Rulong. Xiao Pajuan, Middle Stage Ghost Emperor. Corpse Information, the 87th His Excellency in the land of Tsangshu. He was originally the clan leader of the Pajuan clan in the land of Naraka. He was defeated in a battle for resources in the land of Naraka. He fled the land of Naraka with his remaining clansmen and came to the land of Nine Cauldrons, land of Tsangshu, at that time. He led his clansmen on a series of expeditions and roped in various forces, finally winning the position of His Excellency. After that, he was used as a chess piece by the evil demon god and died in a chess game against the god of Baki. Seeing this person's information, he only had one thought in his mind. I'm rich, I'm going to be rich. Chapter 371. All of them were treasures. After checking the information of more than 10 corpses, he was extremely excited. He felt so happy that he was about to faint. This was too exciting. However, he did not act immediately. Instead, he observed again to make sure that there were no living beings around. Only then did he cautiously walk toward the formation. As he approached, the hazy blue light spots slowly spread out. Who he also looked curiously at the blue crystal in the center of the formation and activated his analysis ability. Evil formation, ancient divine formation, lack of energy. Formation information, the great refining formation set up by the ancient evil demon god. It was buried deep under the mysterious dragon tomb in the center of the land of Tsangshu. It intended to refine all living beings in the entire land as its food. However, the evil demon god died in the heaven and earth chess game. This formation has been buried deep underground for millions of years. 23 days ago, it was accidentally discovered by Yuanshu's subordinate, the Python Ghost King, and used by him. Formation ability: God refining, demonic refining, incomplete, blood refining, corpse refining, curse refining, incomplete, God refining, incomplete. Extract the consciousness of all living beings within the coverage of the formation and refine them into soul medicine, beads of consciousness. Demonic refining, incomplete. Refine all living beings within the coverage of the formation into demonic slaves with 80% of their strength retained. They will be branded with the demonic slave mark, unable to betray, must be a living being above the ghost emperor realm to withstand the demonic refining, blood refining. Refine all living beings within the coverage of the formation into food, requires the support of the great technique of stealing foundation, corpse refining. In progress, refine the corpses of dead experts into zombie spirits for the control of the formation. Retain 50% of their strength. Zombie spirits have the ability to grow. Curse refining, incomplete. Can curse humans, the curse clan, and the curse god through their bloodline. Seeing the ability of the formation, who he could not help but take a deep breath. Now he finally understood why the old bastard Yuanshu avoided the battle. He was not just stirring up trouble, he was simply doing something earth-shattering. Looking at the 4 energy lines that were connected to the formation, as well as one of the energy lines that had long since dimmed, who he finally understood why there was a tunnel under the barrier. Obviously, the real purpose of the barrier was not to stop players from invading, but to absorb dark energy to replenish the consumption of the demonic formation. What a cunning old B***starred, utterly devoid of conscience. Who he could not help but curse after discovering the reason. Although this evil demon array only had the power of blood refinement and corpse refinement left, it was still incomparably terrifying. Who he could not imagine what would happen if that old bastard Yuanshu really refined these powerhouses into zombie spirit. By that time, not to mention the players' expeditions, even if the 4 major servers joined forces, they would not be able to defeat Yuanshu. By then, the European server players would probably have to move to Baiki to live with the Baiki players. That was dozens of ghostly emperors. No matter how tough the players were, they wouldn't be able to defeat them even if they risked their life. It could be said that they had no chance of winning. At that moment, who he was suddenly glad that he had discovered it early. Otherwise, the European server would have collapsed. Looking at the blue crystal, who he immediately picked up his shovel and hacked at the crystal. Clang! A crisp sound was heard. The crystal was unscathed, but who he was sent flying by a wave of blue energy. Who he got up from the ground and pointed at the blue crystal. Go smash! Upon hearing who he's command, the 20 or so burly men who had been standing at the back also picked up their shovels and rushed toward the blue crystal. The sound of metal clashing could be heard continuously. Figures were constantly sent flying by the recoil of the array. After a round of beating, the crystal was still unscathed. On the contrary, the shovels in their hands were chipped and their durability had dropped by a large margin. Seeing this, who he knew that forcefully destroying the array was obviously not going to work. Hence, he stepped into the evil demon array again and reached out to grab a corpse that was sitting cross-legged. He wanted to throw it into the space to see if he could cut off the connection between the corpse and the evil demon array. Game notification. This corpse is being refined and is connected to the evil demon array. Please cut off the connection before attempting to put it into the space. It really didn't work. This won't work, that won't work. What the F*** should I do? If I don't destroy this place, the European server will definitely be finished. I have to find a way. He scratched his head and fell into deep thought. As he thought about it, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. If Yuenshu can control this array and refine these corpses, why can't I do the same? Thinking of this, he suddenly felt a little excited. He quickly went to the crystal and reached out to touch it. Game notification. This evil demon array has been controlled by Yuenshu. Only those of the same realm can erase the controlling imprint. Seeing this notification, He's face instantly fell. One had to know that his realm was only that of a Ghost Supreme Commander who had passed the Ghost Supreme trials. How could he possibly have the ability to erase Yuenshu's imprint? He could not help but let out a sigh. He felt that the European server might really be finished this time. However, giving up just like that was not his style. Hence, he started knocking around the array, and even tried to cut off the other 4 energy lines that provided dark energy. However, since the nodes were not destroyed, the moment the energy lines were cut off, they would automatically recover. This made he a little mad. The refining array set up by the evil demon god left him helpless. It could be said that he had no way to deal with it. He was so angry that he was ready to try to destroy it with brute force. At this moment, he suddenly saw a figure sitting cross-legged in the array from the corner of his eyes. He could not help but be stunned. This was because this figure was very familiar. Thinking of this, he activated his analysis ability. Mo-Su, Middle Stage Ghost Emperor, broken. Corpse information, once the king of the land of demonic void, Yuenshu's father. He controlled the land of demonic void for 380,000 years. Later, he was killed by Yuenshu and his position as king was taken away. Looking at the corpse's analysis panel, he was stunned. What an unfilial son. He killed his father to prove his Tao and now he still wants to refine it. Is he still human? He's simply a beast. He could not help but complain. Although he was surprised when he saw the corpse's information, he did not feel surprised after thinking about it carefully. He had interacted with Yuenshu before. He knew that this guy was ruthless and did not care about any feelings at all. As long as there were benefits, he would do anything. Looking at Mo-Su, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground with half of his body broken, he suddenly had a crazy idea. Should I give it a try? Refining the zombie spirit of the Ghost King realm was extremely difficult for him now. Refining a corpse of the Ghost Emperor realm was almost impossible. Moreover, he had never succeeded in refining Hidorigami. However, at this moment, it seemed like there was no other way. This corpse was of the Ghost Emperor realm. After refining it, he might be able to erase the imprint on the crystal. Thinking of this, he made up his mind. Let's do it. He walked to the front of Mo-Su and took out a series of tools from the space. He began to set up a refining formation around Mo-Su. Corpse refining powder, enslavement powder, spirit summoning array, and so on. As his experience increased, the number of tools he had increased from the initial refining array to more than 20. They surrounded Mo-Su in a circle. This time, he even got 23 zombie spirits to sit around Mo-Su. He was prepared to let them help him refine Mo-Su together. After completing the complicated steps, he activated the corpse refining formation. Suddenly, black fog rose from the corpse refining formation and entered Mo-Su's body. As he began to refine, he suddenly realized that the efficiency of the corpse refining formation had become stronger. At this time, black fog kept emerging from the corpse refining formation. Compared to he's previous refining, the efficiency was more than a few times higher. While feeling astonished, he shifted his gaze towards the crystal. Dark energy enhancement? My array formation can also be strengthened? This discovery was really a pleasant surprise. Who was initially not confident, suddenly felt confident. Then, he calmed down and began to refine Emosu. During the refining, he realized that there was already a lot of refining black fog in Emosu's body. This black fog was obviously provided by the evil spirit formation and was completely different from his own. He began to try to drive the black fog out of Emosu's body. As there was no one controlling the evil spirit formation, the unconscious black fog was easily driven out of Emosu's body by he. Seeing that it was effective, he focused and began to speed up the refining. The 23 zombie spirits sitting around also began to help he activate the corpse refining formation to speed up the refining of the black fog. An hour later, he's forehead was sweating and his hands were trembling. He realized that he could not control the black fog to perfectly integrate into Emosu's body. This was because Emosu's body was too solid like Hidorigami's. It was not something that he could refine at his current stage. After trying again, he suddenly sighed and retracted his hands that were controlling the refining of the black fog. The attempt failed again. This time, he really could not think of any other way. The formation could not be destroyed and the zombie spirits could not be refined. It was a flawless 360-degree defense with no blind spot. Distress, endless distress. At this moment, he was already thinking about whether to post a post on the official forum so that the European server players could escape in advance. After all, when all the zombie spirits were refined, Yuenshu would be so strong that he could destroy the world. The European server players would not be able to defeat him even if they were to be resurrected 10 times in a row. Oh right, the forum. He suddenly thought that it would be better to ask for help from the players instead of racking his brains. There were all kinds of players in the forum, and he might be able to find a solution there. Therefore, he opened the forum panel and took a picture of the situation around him. Then, he posted a post on both the local and European servers. You may not believe it, but the European server is about to collapse. I'm asking for help from all the professional players. Please come up with a good idea. OP. Taoist Corpse Hunter content. Detailed explanation. Attached with video. Such a post full of gimmicks would usually disappear very quickly when it appeared on the forum. However, it was different this time because the poster was Taoist Corpse Hunter, or he, a man with a natural disaster halo. Soon, a large number of players flooded the post. Crayon_Shinchan. You scared me. When I saw the title and then the OP's name, I thought the malignant tumor was going to do something big again. Laughing emoji, *_universe, Europe, oh my god, dozens of ghost emperors. You must deal with the great demon king, otherwise we're really done for, shocking. JPG, McCrae, Europe, what the F *CK, oh my god, is it really that scary? Great demon king, you must stay calm. You must stay calm. It's all up to you. Everyone, help. Help. Rolling_Earth Dragon, Europe, we're done for, we're done for. If these ghost emperors are really refined by Yuenshu, we can only go to Beiki to fight for territory with the local players. Crying emoji, Shueli_the_strongest replied to Rolling_Earth Dragon. Come and try, dripping blood emoji. At this time, the players were wailing in the European server forum. After seeing he's post, they almost had a mental breakdown. Dozens of ghost emperors. They were having a headache dealing with Yuenshu alone, let alone dozens of ghost emperors. Therefore, the players quickly united and began to discuss what to do. Looking at the players' discussion, he was also thinking if there was any other way. At this moment, a player's suggestion made his eyes light up. In Xiaoqi_A_royal_sister. Great Demon King, weren't you still very weak when you stole Chana's head? Moreover, you managed to refine it successfully. So, why don't you try twisting Yuenshu's father's head off and splicing it together? Seeing this reply, Hui's eyes lit up and he slapped his thigh. Good idea. Why didn't I think of it before? Chapter 372. Looking at the various replies from the players on the official forum, Hui's face broke into a smile. At that moment, A large number of players in the forum were asking Hu He to turn on the live broadcast. They said that they wanted to discuss and help him come up with a plan to settle this matter, but in fact, they wanted to see Hu He the Great Demon King stir up trouble. Hu He thought about it and decided to turn on the live broadcast. After all, the suggestions from the players were really helpful to him. The moment the live broadcast room was turned on, countless players flooded in. In just a few minutes, Hu He's live broadcast room had become the hottest topic on the official website. At the same time, a large group of onlookers started spamming the bullet screen with, "The Great Demon King is stirring up trouble." After taking a look at the live broadcast room, Hu He once again focused his attention on the demonic formation. Actually, it was not that Hu He had never thought of cutting off the other 4 central points of the barrier to cut off the energy supply here. However, doing so was risky. After all, he did not know when these ghost emperors would be completely refined. If he did not make it in time, the European server would be finished. However, Yin Xiaoqi's reply gave Hu He a flash of inspiration. Due to being too nervous previously, he had forgotten that partial refinement could speed up the refining process. Without hesitation, Hu He immediately commanded his zombie spirits to start pulling Mo Su's corpse. However, Mo Su's corpse was very hard like Hidorigami's. Even though his zombie spirits had reached the realm of half-step Ghost King, they could not tear Mo Su's head off his torso with all their strength. Faced with this problem, Hu He began to take out his corpse-dissolving powder and applied it on Mo Su's neck. Then, he began to command the zombie spirits to pull it off. 1, 2, pull. 1, 2, pull. 1, 2, pull. Seeing this scene, the players in the live broadcast room burst into laughter. Crayon Shinchan, Big Tumor, look behind you. Yuenshu is watching you. Star of the Universe, Europe, do your best, Great Demon King. If you do this, our guild will pay for all your expenses in breaking the seal. Jason, Europe, Great Demon King, it's really up to you this time. I've sent you 10,000 soul coins in the form of an email. Please check it. Do your best. Big Green Dragon, Europe, haha. After fighting with Yuenshu for so long, I'm inexplicably happy to see this scene. Maybe my grudge against Yuenshu is too deep. Roasting Chong E while hugging Jade Rabbit. Pft, haha, the European server is about to collapse. Is it really okay for you guys to be so happy? Goblin Warship, Yuenshu, Motherf ** Ker, just you wait, laughing emoji, watermelon _ Taro. I'm shocked. More than 20 naked men are actually doing this. It's a large-scale dismemberment scene. I'm just a child. It's too scary. I'm going to call the police, laughing emoji. While Hu He was working hard, the audience in the live streaming channel was unusually lively. The bullet screen rained down on the screen. If it wasn't for the bullet screen, it would be impossible to see the screen clearly. Under Hu He's command, the zombie spirits stood on 2 sides, one pulling the shoulders and the other pulling the head. The scene was inexplicably hilarious. However, from Hu He's point of view, this was a very serious matter. After all, if one's head could not be torn off, everything else would be in vain. As time passed, Hu He's expression grew more and more serious. The players who were having fun in the live streaming channel also realized that something was amiss. They stopped refreshing the bullet screen and focused their attention on the situation. If the land of Tsangxu was occupied by Yuenshu, it would definitely affect more than just the European server players. With so many zombie spirits in his hands, Yuenshu's ambition would definitely expand. Hence, his next target was likely to be the land of Beiki. This was something that the players of both servers did not want to see. After trying again, Hu He waved the zombie spirits to stop their tug-of-war. Then, he clicked on the live streaming channel's interface. Are there any pharmacists in the live streaming channel? Who knows how to refine corpse refining powder? It's best if it's corpse dissolving powder. Anyway, I need a high-quality one. As he spoke, Hu He took out a pack of potions, opened the analysis, and displayed it in the live streaming channel. Corpse Dissolving Powder Level 2 Potion. Potion Introduction. A special Level 2 potion made by grinding and stirring 7 kinds of herbs, including bone erosion worm powder, muddy spirit water, green tusk flower. Potion Effect. Has a strong corrosive effect and can cause continuous damage. It can also be used to refine corpses. Potion Quality. 19. Seeing the analysis panel of the potion in Hu He's hands, the comments section suddenly became lively again. Many Bakey Pharmacist players immediately began to reply in the live streaming channel, saying that there was no problem and that they would start immediately. Thank you, Hu He said, and started waiting. At that moment, a comment in the live streaming channel caught Hu He's attention. Serene player. Actually, you can try using the Tier 4 potion Corpse Dissolving Water. I've read about this potion in the alchemy manual before. Its effects are very strong. Originally, it was used for assassination or to be thrown at enemies. However, the one you're refining is a Ghost Emperor expert. Although this potion can't melt Void's corpse, I don't think it'll be a problem for it to break through his defense. Seeing this comment, Hu He's heart skipped a beat. In fact, in his opinion, using corpse dissolving powder to break the demonic Void's defense was too difficult. It was basically impossible. He had also considered using a higher level corpse dissolving water, but the pharmacist profession had just been released not long ago. It was already difficult to refine a level 3 potion, let alone a level 4 one. Hence, Hu He felt that it was unrealistic. After thinking for a while, Hu He clicked on the comment and replied with anticipation, "Brother, do you know how to refine corpse dissolving water?" I don't know, but I can guide others in refining it." The player quickly replied to Hu He's question. Seeing this reply, Hu He was stunned. How could he guide others when he didn't know how to refine it? Was this a joke? Serene player. It's true. Believe me, although I'm not good at refining medicine, I've been studying the beginner books on refining medicine in the intermediate stage. My basic knowledge is very solid. I can guarantee that no pharmacist is more proficient in refining medicine than I am. Seeing this person's reply, Hu He thought for a while and replied, "All right, I believe you. I'll help you find an pharmacist." Then, Hu He closed the reply interface and said to the players in the live streaming channel, "Are there any more powerful pharmacists in the live streaming channel? Are there any powerful apothecaries in the stream room? Let's contact this Serene player and give it a try." Hearing Hu He's reply, a group of pharmacist players immediately began to contact this Serene player. Nie Fong, who was far away in Bakey, suddenly received the contact of dozens of pharmacists. He was very familiar with the names of these pharmacists. They were all from the same batch of students who attended the medicine refining course on the side of the rock. He scanned through the names on the list, chose a reliable pharmacist, and added him as a friend. After adding him as a friend, Nie Fong sent his coordinates to the pharmacist player. At the same time, he also received the coordinates that the pharmacist player had sent to him. Then, both of them began to run toward each other's location. Time passed bit by bit as they waited. During this period, many players had already mailed him high-quality corpse-dissolving powder that they had refined. He had also tried them one by one. However, the result was just as the Serene player had said. There was no effect at all. He could not break through Mo Su's defense at all. Under such circumstances, Hu He could only hope that the Serene player would bring him a surprise. Another half an hour had passed. Just as Hu He was about to try using the corpse-dissolving powder again, a game notification rang. Game notification. You have received a mail from player Nie Fong. Please check. Seeing this, Hu He quickly opened the mail. Sender. Nie Fong. Content. Hello Great Demon King, I am the Serene player. The corpse-dissolving powder that you wanted has been completed. Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. However, I failed a few times during the process. The quality of the product this time is a little low. I hope it will be successful. Looking at a bottle of purple potion in the mail's inventory, Hu He's face lit up with joy. Originally, he did not have much hope in refining the corpse-dissolving powder. He did not expect this player to bring him such a huge surprise. Hu He immediately took out the potion from the mail. Corpse-dissolving powder, level 4 potion. Potion introduction. Intermediate potion, made from more than 20 types of medicinal herbs. It has a strong corrosive effect and has bonus damage to zombie-type creatures. Depends on the quality. Potion special effects. Strong corrosion, level 4. Corpse dissolving, level 4. Potion quality. 13 potion maker. Lin Xiaodong seeing this potion, Hu He knew that he really had hope of defeating Mo Su this time. He immediately walked in front of Mo Su, pulled out the cork of the potion, and carefully poured the corpse-dissolving powder on Mo Su's neck. This time, it was obviously effective. Fine bubbles began to emerge from Mo Su's neck, and a pink line appeared. It's really effective. Hu He could not help but clench his fist. Then, Hu He poured the potion evenly around Mo Su's neck. While the potion reacted with Mo Su's skin, he began to command the zombie spirits to tug of war again. Under the corrosion of the potion, Mo Su's neck was no longer as strong as before. Under the pulling of the zombie spirits, it finally began to separate bit by bit. Pa! The crisp sound of bone and flesh being separated was heard. Mo Su's head was finally separated from his body. Seeing this, the players in the live streaming channel cheered. Receiving Mo Su's head from the zombie spirits, Hu He could not help but laugh out loud. With this head, he might be able to solve the crisis this time. His strength would also be greatly improved. What a happy ending! He tried to throw Mo Su's head into the channel. Since Mo Su's head had already separated from his body, the game notification did not appear this time. It was easily stored in the channel by Hu He. Looking at the remaining half bottle of corpse-dissolving potion, Hu He could not help but look at Mo Su's other body parts. Knowing that the remaining amount of potion would not be enough to remove the body, Hu He focused his attention on Mo Su's limbs. Hu He never had any resistance towards corpses. Otherwise, he would not have committed so many mistakes in the past. Therefore, he was ready to take action again. However, just as Hu He was pouring the corpse-dissolving potion, a figure suddenly appeared from the right side of the tunnel. Seeing that someone had appeared, Hu He was also shocked. He immediately turned his body to look. Yuanxiu. Seeing this person, Hu He immediately recognized his identity. Yuanxiu was also stunned. He also recognized Hu He at this moment, but in his memory, Hu He was clearly dead. Also, why did the 20 or so naked men behind him look so familiar? They were all resurrected. Thinking of this, Yuanxiu could not help but widen his eyes. Then, he looked at the corpse under Hu He and his eyes widened even more. Because the head of Mo Su's corpse, which was also his father's head, it was gone. Chapter 373. Yuanxiu's sudden appearance caught Hu He, who was about to disassemble Mo Su's arm, off guard. At this moment, the two of them stared at each other with their eyes wide open. As they stared at each other, Yuanxiu's face gradually turned ferocious while the smile on Hu He's face gradually froze. The atmosphere became extremely awkward. It's you've actually resurrected. Yuanxiu's face was gloomy as he walked towards Hu He step by step. Unfilial son, your father is in my hands. Try and touch me. Hu He immediately raised Mo Su's broken body and threatened him. Although Hu He knew that Yuanxiu did not care at all, he still wanted to try and threaten him to put up a last-ditch struggle. What if Yuanxiu, this unfilial son, suddenly became filial? However, nothing unexpected happened. Mo Su continued to walk towards Hu He with a straight face. When he was not far away from Hu He, Yuanxiu stopped and looked at the zombie spirits behind Hu He. So you're the only one who resurrected. They've all become zombie spirit. Are you a zombie forge master? I'm your father. Knowing that he could not escape, Hu He did not bother to talk to Yuanxiu anymore. He pointed at Yuanxiu and suddenly, The zombie spirits behind him began to rush towards Mo. Seeing this, Yuanchu's face turned cold. With a wave of his hand, he sent several zombie spirits flying. His figure flashed and he quickly rushed towards Hu-He. Seeing this, the surrounding zombie spirits immediately blocked Hu-He's way. However, in the face of the powerful Yuanchu, the zombie spirits were completely helpless, even if they had the strength of a half-step ghost king. Under Yuanchu's charge, they could not resist and were all sent flying. At this moment, Yuanchu arrived in front of Hu-He, grabbed his neck and slowly lifted him up. It's not an ethereal body, it's a physical body. You've really resurrected. Looking at Hu-He, Yuanchu could not believe it. I wanted to resurrect your father and teach you a lesson, you unfilial son. Hu-He continued to be stubborn. Hearing this, a ferocious smile appeared on Yuanchu's face. Speaking of which, you and I have a deep relationship. Back then, you rejected my offer to surrender. Now that I'm giving you another chance, will you cherish it? How regretful. Why did I let you out, you scourge? Hearing Yuanchu's words, Hu-He recalled the mistake of letting Yuanchu out and felt remorseful. Don't jump to conclusions so early. Think about it carefully. How powerful will I be after I refine these experts who once shook the heavens and the earth in this region? Follow me, and your future will be limitless. As long as I conquer a second major domain or become a god, I'll grant you the position of an abyssal prefect. Although Hu-He's attitude was bad, Yuanchu did not kill him directly. He had interacted with Hu-He a few times and knew how valuable he was. Back then, he had a huge advantage and could have easily taken over this region with the help of the powerful army of the original Tsangshu. However, due to Hu-He's frequent release of natural disasters, the situation had become chaotic, resulting in the current situation. Originally, he hated Hu-He to the core, but things were different now. Now that he had control over the demonic formation, Hu-He's ability to easily find seals and the corpses of powerhouses was too valuable to him. Therefore, Yuanchu wanted to try and recruit Hu-He. He believed that as long as Hu-He was loyal to him, he would be able to obtain a powerful and incomparably large zombie army with Hu-He's ability. By then, he would be the uncrowned king, second only to the gods. I know what you're thinking. Unfortunately, I can't rest easy if I'm loyal to an unfilial son like you who killed his own father. Hearing this, Yuanchu's face darkened. He had actually restrained his temper towards Hu-He, but he did not expect Hu-He to not give him any face at all. Looks like your choice this time is still as ignorant as before. Yuanchu asked again. I never negotiate with beasts, Hu-He continued to speak. Then go to hell. Yuanchu had lost his patience. His right arm that was strangling Hu-He's neck suddenly expanded, and with a huge force, Hu-He's neck was instantly broken. Then, he turned into a black fog and dissipated on the spot. Seeing Hu-He turn into a black fog and dissipate after his death, Yuanchu's expression turned solemn. After contacting Hu-He, Yuanchu was sure that Hu-He's body was a physical entity, and there was a soul within it. However, both the soul and the body had disappeared into thin air. This time, not only did Hu-He's body disappear, but the 20 zombie spirits also disappeared. All of this was very strange. Yuanchu suddenly thought of the Player Clan, one of the forces under the evil king that had been fighting with his Yuanchu army recently. Could it be that he was from the Player Clan? Yuanchu, who could not figure it out, looked at Mo-Su's broken body on the ground and began to scan around the demonic formation. From Yuanchu's point of view, the head must have been hidden by Hu-He. After all, a tool related to the law of space was not something a weakling like him could possess. However, after looking around and even using his consciousness to search, Yuanchu was shocked to find that his father's head had really disappeared. At this moment, Yuanchu was a little confused. He felt that Hu-He was too strange. After exiting the game, Hu-He did not choose to go offline. Instead, he continued to lie in the gaming pod and opened the battle official forum. Although he knew that Yuenshu would come when he destroyed the demonic formation, he was still caught off guard when he actually appeared. Facing the powerful Yuenshu, he knew that he was completely defenseless now. Death was inevitable. However, the 3-hour cooldown for resurrection was still very uncomfortable for him. He had a love-hate relationship with this game. He loved its realism, freedom, and fairness, but he hated its rigid attitude that refused to compromise with the players no matter what. For example, opening a channel for soul coins to top up, removing the 3-hour cooldown for resurrection, increasing the frequency of game activities, etc. The battle official had never turned a blind eye to the strong feedback from the players. Moreover, the battle official gave the players the impression that they were making the game seriously. As for whether the players wanted to play or not, it was up to them. Such a deceitful attitude. If it was any other game, he believed that the players would have flipped the table and protested. However, when faced with the battle online that generated love, after several collective protests, the players realized that they could not come up with anything to threaten the official website. This made the players very worried, including he. The 3-hour torturous time had just begun. He decided to browse the official forum to kill time. At this moment, a post on the official forum caught his attention. Player Niefeng, where did you go? Aren't you going to provide the explosive pills that you said you were going to? Don't tell me you stole our guild's spiritual materials and ran away? OP Wolf Ren content. Today there was a player named Niefeng. His forum name was unknown. The reason was that during the war with the Nine Yao army, this player named Niefeng refined explosive pills that were very effective and powerful. Many guilds fought for them as a strategic resource. In order to ensure that he could refine medicine better, our guild decided to give him a batch of spiritual materials and stored them with him in advance so that he could refine as much as he wanted. In the beginning, he did provide our guild with 2 batches of explosive pills. However, this guy didn't provide any more and kept saying that he was very busy. But you've been busy for a month now. Brother, if you're really busy, can you return some of the spiritual materials? The rest will be your reward for refining the explosive pills. Replies. Strike gold. F***CK brother, are you in the same situation? Me too. Yi Schwerer is the cutest. I know that 3 guilds' spiritual materials are in his hands and he hasn't returned them. However, I still gave him a chance and am waiting for him to return them. A mammoth. I'm speechless. The excuse he gave me was that he had been failing a lot recently and needed to take a break. It turns out that our guild isn't the only one being scammed. Cha Na's unbelievable face. JPG, Jantian. 666, so you guys are in the same situation too. Looks like I'm not alone. This is a huge scam, so many people have fallen into it. Laughing emoji. This post was originally posted by a player, but it became a hot topic after it attracted a lot of attention from the guilds that were scammed. While reading the post, he felt that the name Niefeng was very familiar. He thought about it carefully and suddenly remembered. Isn't this the master apothecary who gave me the corpse-dissolving water and guided others in refining level 4 medicine? I didn't expect him to be such a person. He originally had a good impression of Niefeng, but he couldn't help but sigh when he saw so many powerful guilds denouncing him. At this time, another post popped up in the forum. What caught Hui's attention was that the person who posted it was the Syrian player, Niefeng. He immediately clicked on the post. Alright, I'll be honest. I'm really being honest. I can't take it anymore. I'll tell you the truth. I hope everyone can understand. Original poster. Syrian player content. I know that everyone is looking for me. Many guilds have stockpiled a large amount of spiritual materials with me, which adds up to hundreds of thousands of soul coins. This is definitely not a small amount. Originally, I just wanted to provide some help to everyone fighting against the Nine Yao army by refining explosive pills for free. I'm very grateful that all of you trusted me and gave me so many valuable spiritual materials. However, I can assure you that I'm definitely not greedy for these spiritual materials. I'm definitely not that kind of person. Now, let's talk about the cause of the incident. When the 9 Yao army attacked, I was refining medicine or forging tools with many lifestyle players in the Mansion of the Dead as your logistical support to contribute to the war. However, who would have thought that Sun would suddenly appear in the Mansion of the Dead with the warriors of the 9 Yao army? The situation was very urgent at that time. Although many lifestyle players and NPCs tried their best to resist, they still couldn't stop Sun, who was leading the army. I felt really bad watching them die one by one. Among them were my teachers and my friends. However, I was hot-headed and suddenly remembered that I could refine explosive pills. The stronger the medicinal effect, the more powerful it would be. Under such circumstances, I really did it. I even threw all the medicinal materials you gave me into Instructor Rock's medicine refining furnace. I don't know how I did it. The medicine furnace that was supposed to explode at the beginning was controlled by me until the very last moment. The power was unimaginably great. I admit it. I was the one who blew up the entire Mansion of the Dead. Crying emoji, please forgive me. I did it for Beiki, for our common home. Everything was unintentional. Please forgive me. Crying emoji. Attached is a picture of the refining process. Replies. Crayon_Shinchan. Looking at your forum name, you are very self-aware. Laughing emoji. But you're not just a Syrian player. You're basically a combination of an Iraqi player, a Taliban player, and a Syrian player. It's a pity that you're not a terrorist. Laughing emoji. Watermelon_Taro. Oh my god! I was wondering why Sun was seriously injured. Now all the suspicious points make sense. You're really a nuclear weapon. Scary. Roasting_Jade_Rabbit_while_hugging_Chong-E. What the F***CK. Big brother, your revenge is too cruel and cruel. You blew up our house. Bleeding emoji. Shirley_the_strongest. Why didn't you admit it earlier? We all thought you stole the spiritual materials. However, when the Mansion of the Dead is restored, don't refine medicine in the Mansion of the Dead. My heart isn't good. If you do that again, I'll die on the spot. Bleeding emoji. Like wolf_tiger_panther. Scary. When the Mansion of the Dead is rebuilt, move to the Ghost Mountains next door to refine medicine. Don't ever come to Beiki to refine medicine. Otherwise, I'll issue a wanted order to hunt you down. Storm_warrior. How scary. I attended the rock training course with you back then. At that time, I already felt that you were a dangerous person. Every time you refine medicine, you cause such a huge commotion. I didn't expect you to be even scarier than I imagined. Society. Boss Nya Fong, you're really an unsolvable bomb. Laughing emoji. Crayon_Shinchan. Layden. Young man, the organization needs you. Laughing emoji. After reading the content of the post, he finally understood what was going on. At that time, the explosion of the Mansion of the Dead caused a huge sensation. Basically, all the players thought that it was Sun's doing. After all, other than Sun, no other player had the ability to destroy the world. However, if it was really Sun's doing, there were many suspicious points. For example, if Sun wanted to occupy Beiki, why would he destroy the most important Mansion of the Dead? Also, why would Sun be on the verge of death after destroying the Mansion of the Dead? This time, after Nya Fong posted an explanation and attached a picture, all the suspicious points were explained. At that moment, he had no choice but to admit that this Syrian player was really cruel. He was simply a malignant tumor. At that moment, he was immersed in the role of a bystander. He had completely forgotten that he was the biggest malignant tumor among the Battle Royale players. While browsing through the replies in the post, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Wasn't he able to refine a nuclear bomb? Could the demonic formation under the uncanny dragon tomb explode?